How are you? I am Captain Garrett. This is the Captain's Cast, live on YouTube, Rumble, and X, formerly known as Twitter. It is your premier entertainment show for historical, sci-fi, fantasy, and all things nerd culture entertainment. I am your host, Captain Garrett. Please do like and subscribe. And we have got to talk about Blue Beetle, which I think I described it as a fart in the wind. In my, which I don't mean to be so vulgar on the Captain's Cast this early, but I have a reason for this metaphor, and I will get to that. Stargate SG-1 has officially become bingeable, folks. If you don't know, if you're new to the stream here on the Captain's Cast on Swords and Starships Channel live every Sunday, then you may be unaware that I'm watching Stargate SG-1 because, lest it be forgotten, there are still good things. There are still good things out there, and I have a lot of good things to talk about, and I binged about 4 episodes. That's a milestone, folks. You know, I have been very honest about the fact that the early episodes of Stargate, no, I will keep watching. I will keep watching. You know that a show's starting to pull you in when you're like, yes, start next episode. And there were starships in it, so we'll be talking about some Stargate. Starfury says, evening all. Evening, Starfury. Welcome aboard. I appreciate seeing you. I love Fobad Blues in the chat. Hail to the chat. Got my peeps in here. So excited. The Rebel chat's fired up. We got X. I have like 2 followers on X now. I'm just kidding. Look, Swords and Starships. Swords and we're off to a great start today. Swords and Starships Channel is growing, and I have important things I am working on. We're going to talk about that. So, chat, remind me in case I forget. We need to talk about locals. I'm going to be working on some content for locals. I actually have an idea. I have an idea for an interactive RPG. You could participate for free, GM'd, that is game mastered by your host, Captain Garrett, and anyone who wants to play can play. And it's sort of like how you do RPGs on Discord, so I'll talk more about that. Did you know that you, for the very low price of just canceling your Netflix, could sponsor a Film Actors Guild member suffering on strike today? Did you know that for the simple, low-cost activity of deleting your Netflix, you could support these poor, oppressed, overworked, and underpaid film actors of the Film Actors Guild? So I have an important, we're gonna get all Sally Struthers on you, if anyone remembers that reference, and we're gonna talk about those starving film actors that need your desperate help to cancel Netflix. Sip of coffee for the Captain. Hat Tip Coffee brand coffee. That is what the Captain is drinking tonight. Starfury says, Blue Beetle, another monetary disaster for DC. Oh, the woes of the superhero genre. We're going to talk about that, Starfury. You are right. It is absolutely a disaster. And I have seen it. I went to the theater for this one. Of course, I always go to the theater and pay a full ticket price to see these woke disasters. I will say, I went into Blue Beetle, I think, the most open and fair-minded I've probably been in the theater all year. Because, yes, I did not like the Batman as a fascist line in the trailer. But aside from that, the trailer actually seemed like this could work. This could be a good one. Like, I had the same feeling about Black Adam. And, I mean, Shazam, just not really my thing. I probably, when I was a kid, I would have liked it more because it's a superhero wish fulfillment fantasy for a kid, which as a kid, I would have loved that, but I just not my thing anymore. But I was open to Black Adam being good. And actually Black Adam, I would say, is one of the better ones in DC. I mean, it's generic. Some of it is Chat GPT, but I will say I liked that it was at least a little bit original. And I liked the fact, that the whole dynamic of he kills people was kind of interesting, only because they made it a moral question in the story. And I thought it was pretty intriguing. some bloated scenes that were kind of just throwaway filler, and it's kind of forgettable. But I was open to it. Blue Beetle, I was open to this being a good movie. I was open to being wrong. I knew there was going to be the cringe Batman is a fascist line, but I was like, look, if the rest of it's good, I'm willing to forgive that. Hell, look, if you're anything but a woke leftist and you have been watching films for any amount of time, you're used to this. You're used to this because their worldview is the only worldview included in most creative projects. It's just the way it is. And I don't mind watching a liberal worldview. I truly don't. I actually think it's when it's done well, it's a very positive thing. And it's very positive. Everybody's views should have a fair hearing in art, I think. Which is probably getting in the weeds. But my point is, what is new is the kind of mean-spiritedness of some of the writing. So the question right off the bat, is Blue Beetle woke? Well, we'll get into that. So we're going to talk about that. And, what else do I have in the stack of stuff? Oh, yes. I have a rather unusual development. I heard about this show, Twisted Metal, which is based on the PlayStation racing game. Now, your captain, that would be me, Captain Garrett of the Swords and Starships Channel. Please hit like and subscribe. I am not a fan of racing games or sports games. It's not my thing. It's just not my thing. Role-playing games, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Skyrim, those are my favorites. But also, I like the occasional Halo. I like the occasional shooter. I like the occasional Resident Evil. So I have a broad selection of things, but I've never played Twisted Metal, but I kept hearing about it and I thought, well, what the hell, why not? And I watched Twisted Metal and the results may surprise you. So you will also have my review of Twisted Metal. Is it good? Is it great? Are the reports of its goodness sadly exaggerated? We shall discuss. And I have an idea. I bag on a lot of stuff, okay? And I see that super chat, Fu Man Blue. You're so generous, sir. I will get to that in just a second. I bag on a lot of stuff. I give you a lot of bad news. So I think I want to start closing the stream with something good, something positive that makes me happy. And so I'm calling that the captain's favorite things. And final thoughts. You remember Jerry Springer? Anyone remember Jerry Springer? He used to do, he would preside over 55 minutes of the most debased, morally just depraved human behavior you'd ever seen. All the while he's encouraging it. All the while his producers are starting fights between, these trailer park people. And he gets the most, he scraped under beneath the rock. He scraped one lower below that to find the worst examples of human behavior. And he puts them on the show. He spends 55 minutes. Jerry. And what does he do? The last 5 minutes, he does this sort of contemplative, moral, what he called final thoughts, which was him giving you this kind of moral, what can I say? It was like Jerry Springer suddenly becomes Mr. Rogers at the end. There was a moral to this story. It's no, we watching this and you hosting it, we all should be ashamed of ourselves and nobody should be feeling good about this. That you want to talk about a guilty pleasure, Jerry Springer. My God, that was anyway. So Fu Man Blue super chat for $5. Why, thank you, Fu Man Blue. Very generous, sir. PTCA. The internet will soon discover that acronyms are my weakness, but PTCA, sir, reading your first book, I really started feeling it when John flashed back to the event. That was very intense, bro. Well, thank you. I'm trying to think about, I think I know what you're talking about. He's referring, of course, to the captain's Iron Age novel, Blood and Oak. In fact, thank you, Fu Man Blue. If the chat would just pardon me for just one moment, I bet I could. I wonder how I do on the search rankings these days. Blood and Oak. This is a swashbuckling naval adventure. Actually, I'll just do this. Yeah, this is my website even. You can listen to the first part of it for free, by the way. You can listen to the first part for free if you're looking for good swashbuckling historical content with a patriotic hero who loves being a patriot. There you go. Blood and Oak. When his sister is kidnapped and sold into slavery by the Barbary pirates, a daring sailor embarks on a suicidal quest for rescue and revenge. Available now on Audible. 2 books in the series so far, and I'm working on more. So thank you very kindly, Fu Man Blue. I appreciate that. And yes, one quick note on that. I remember when I was writing it, I did a lot of historical research for this book, and I take liberties with history. I'm not going to tell you that you should look at it as like 100% historical accuracy, but I try to get as very close as I can because I'm trying to give you a time machine into the time as authentically and fairly as I can. And I remember thinking when I wrote the scenes dealing with Barbary pirate slavery, I was like, I don't know. I worry that I won't do it justice, how awful it was. And it turns out a lot of the feedback I got was, wow, that was harrowing. And I was like, good, because it was horrific. And it's a part of history people never talk about. Nobody ever remembers that for 300 years, Europeans were the victims of slavery from the Barbary pirates and frankly the Arab world. I mean, it was the Crusades was not just, oh, let's go invade a country for fun. Let's go take back Jerusalem. It was partly the result of essentially, you've heard about the term slave comes from Slavs. Well, who were enslaving the Slavs? Well, that would be the Ottomans. So in any case, Blood and Oak, check it out. Star Fury says, are you using StreamYards so we don't have to give money to YouTube? I am using StreamYards. I don't know if I have a donation link, though. I do appreciate that, though. I will make a note of that for future. I am using StreamYards. So I got to get that sorted out. I'll make sure in the next stream there's a link in the description. So, Silverback, ahoy, chat. Fu Man Blue, I never watched Springer. Well, is it even on anymore? This was a long time ago. Look, don't judge me, Fu Man Blue. Actually, I really did hate it, though. I hated watching stuff. I still do, honestly. It's like I could never watch stuff like I try to think like there was Mari Povich, but like the Kardashians, just stuff like that. It's trash to me. And I'm not, no offense to anyone that likes it. It depresses me. Okay. That's why I watch Star Trek, because I want to watch about humanity aspiring to noble ideals. I do have guilty pleasures, though. Survivor. I watch Survivor. I love that. Fu Man Blue says, permission to come aboard? Granted, sir. This is the Captain's Cast, where permission to come aboard is never required, but always granted. And I can't believe I'm doing this. I have no choice. Fu Man Blue. That's PTCA. I got nothing. I draw a blank. I have bug brain. When this is what my friends used to call it when I was playing video games. I had bug brain, which meant I could not concentrate on more than one thing at a time. It's just, it's how your captain's brain works. So more on the chat. I just lost my chat. Hang on 1 second. Where's the chat? There it is. Yeah, Fu Man Blue says it has some really colorful characters. I'm starting to like them after a few dozen pages. And if that is a reference to Blood and Oak, thank you again, sir. I do appreciate it. Characters are the heart and soul of a story. In fact, I have been watching Mahler's new video just dropped on Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. And it is brilliant. It's about an hour. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. I'm only about 20 minutes into it. Holy crap. I could almost do just a whole reaction stream to Mahler's video. It's so freaking great. He breaks down, like, honestly, that movie is, he hasn't even gotten to the worst parts of the movie yet. And he's just, every single line in that movie is a continuity error, a character break. It's just like he breaks down, like, there's the concept in Quantumania. Casey just invents a quantum telescope that can measure the whole quantum realm. And one of the things that Mahler points out is like, gone are the days in storytelling in which a character had to study for years, like a generational family legacy. Like the character that invented the incredible technology in his 40s spent his whole life studying it, and much of his research was based on the research of his father, who had devoted his whole life but failed and never succeeded. Hey, hello, Tony Stark. Tony Stark's Iron Man suit was as much the inheritance of his father's knowledge and teachings of a lifetime of work as it was Tony Stark's lifetime of work up to that point. And it's like Casey is a 17-year-old who just, I don't know, she's supposed to be 19 or something. And she just invents. She just invents a quantum telescope like it's nothing. Oh yeah, I read some quantum mechanics books and I just took an interest, So Mahler is ripping this thing to shreds before it's even gotten into the quantum realm. It's so good. All right, cool. Let's talk about Blue Beetle. Dude, Mahler is the surgeon, Star Fury. He says, wow, Mahler's video is so scathing. I absolutely adore the man, not gay. Well, one could be forgiven. One could hit, with that voice, holy moly. Yeah. So, but he is the surgeon. Nothing gets by him, and I love it. I love it as a storyteller because, even things that like I recognized in the film as it's going by, I like that. I don't like that, and sometimes you just get that feeling. I don't like it, but I don't know why, because it's going, you have to watch it multiple times to really catch everything. And he points out, like, every 10 seconds, there is something someone says in that movie, Quantum Mania, that totally undermines their character from the previous films, that totally contradicts their character. One example. Hank Pym states multiple times in the first Ant-Man movie and in the successive movies, nobody will ever get the Pym particle. I will never allow this technology to ever fall into the hands of anyone, ever. What does he do? He gives it to his granddaughter to just screw around with the quantum realm. There's another one. He says, oh, what are these ants doing? Oh, well, they invented all these electricity and technology. And Mahler's like, wait a minute. Why are we moving past this? Like, we got to talk about the fact that he just invented sentient ants and also are now his slaves because he's keeping them trapped in this ant colony. And I'm like, it's incredible how much absolute garbage is stuffed into every second of that movie. I hate Quantum Mania. I hate it. It is the worst film of the year. I still have not seen it. Nothing has topped it yet. I'm keeping an eye out, though. I am keeping an eye out. Blue Beetle did not top Quantum Mania for the worst film of the year. How's that for a segue? By the way, it's not necessary for a film to be perfect. And I think Mahler is quite open about this as well. It is not necessary for a film to have zero continuity errors. It's basically not even possible. It's the human creative impulse. It's just, it acts in spite of our flaws. And I actually think that's why AI can never truly replace a sentient artist. It just can't, because part of what makes stories great are the flaws. Part of what makes us great as creators is our fallibility. And so Mahler is never arguing, and nor would I, that a film should be flawless. It should be perfect. It should aspire to that. It should aspire to that. But is that possible? Well, no. That's what makes art worth pursuing. That's, painting the Mona Lisa wouldn't be worth doing if Da Vinci could just land it perfectly every time. The point is the pursuit. And so what is so offensive about a film like Quantum Mania is that the attitude of the filmmakers, the creatives, the marketing, and the media is that it is entitled to the benefit of the doubt. It is entitled to your support as an audience member, and yet is as lazy a piece of creative work as has ever been put to film, with no excuse. I mean, the enormous, limitless resources that these companies have to create these, and it's that hubris. I saw a tweet from someone. I think it was at one of the Geeks and Gamers guys, or maybe it was Critical Drinker. No. It was a Ryan Kinnell had tweeted at what was it? Manuel Soto, the director of Blue Beetle, who we'll be talking about in just a moment. Yeah, he just tweeted at him, yeah, your job is done. Now that your film is a complete trash fire and it's failing at the box office. And that, of course, is in reply to him when fans were unhappy about the Batman as a fascist line. The director basically tweeted, if it's pissing you off, my job is done. Sent a little, and so that was kind of the, and someone replied to Ryan saying, what do you want from the guy? He hasn't tweeted in months. For all you know, he's received your feedback and honestly agrees with you. And I'm thinking, what a dumb tweet that is. What an absolute. So, in other words, this guy is saying, well, because Soto has not tweeted in a long time, maybe he agrees with you. Well, if that's true, he should apologize. He should apologize. If that is true, he should say that. He should say, you know what? I've heard the fans. I was a little bit snarky. Things got away from me. I appreciate everyone who gave this film a chance. Look, I've got my worldview. It seeped into the film, but I hope you know, I love this character and I hear the fans' feedback and I hope you'll give it a chance. Imagine if he said that. If he said that, I guarantee you everything would change. Everything would change. I think people are so open to forgive. The issue we have is that it's not really the issue we have. It's the issue they have. They have made us, their audience, they have made us the enemy. They have made us the enemy, and they demand that we give their films a fair hearing. Well, screw you, Soda. We ain't doing it. But I did, as it happens, give Blue Beetle a fair hearing, and here's what I thought. Okay, there's a couple of good. So Blue Beetle starts with Jamie Reyes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's pronounced Jaime. It's pronounced Jaime. More on this later. So there's a scene in this movie. Okay, look, because lest you be not reminded every 10 seconds that racism, all the racism that Latinx people face every day, the racism that they face every day. He walks up in a nice suit to a receptionist, the main character, Jaime Reyes, played by Zola Maridueña, who is quite likable for the most part. We'll get to that. He walks up to a receptionist desk and he's there for a job interview. The receptionist says to him, oh, okay, Jamie, where he just said, my name is Jaime Reyes. And she says, oh, okay, Jamie. And I'm like, this is not an error people make in speech, you dumb film. Like, this is, in other words, if she were reading the word Jaime, she might mispronounce it because in English, the J makes a ja sound. Phonetically, in English, J makes a ja sound. Why do English-speaking people never get any forgiveness for our culture? Like, we have a right to pronounce things in the English fashion, do we not? If you want to pronounce everything in the Spanish way, I don't have a problem with that either. Anyhow. So she could be reading it as Jamie and mispronouncing it, and then he could audibly say it's pronounced Jaime. And I think, yeah, is it annoying? Is it annoying when someone mispronounces my name? All the time. People call me Jarrett. I'm like, it's Garrett. Do I think that they're racist assholes? Do I think they're bigoted? No. And sometimes it's people that are English as a second language and they have, so what? But that's not what happened in the scene. In the scene, he audibly said, my name is Jaime. And she says, Jamie. And then he said, it's pronounced Jaime. And then she, okay, Jamie, we're going to, it's fine, forget it. And I'm just like, this happened never. Like, this has never happened. You can't even convince me this has ever happened because it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's what you're in for with this film. So we'll get into that. Boobad Blue says, you watched it all, you animal. I couldn't stay calm. It wasn't healthy for me to stay with it. Would that be, I haven't kept up with the chat. That might be referring to something else. All right. So Jaime Reyes is the main character, and the movie starts out, he's coming back from college and he's really excited to tell his family he's got his degree and he's now going to get a great job. They live in a fictional city, which was extremely confusing in this film, but they live in a fictional city in Texas, which is not stated in the film, at least that I could catch. So I had no idea what they were talking about when they were talking about a lot of their immigration issues. There's a lot of that in this. Palermo City is where they live. Okay, fine. So he comes back to Palermo City. Turns out the family's having a tough time. They are a Mexican immigrant family, and their house is being foreclosed upon by essentially the villainous corporation, the Cord Corporation that owns their property. And Jaime's upset because he's not getting any good jobs and he can't help his family out. And he happens to run into Jenny Cord at when he's working on one of the properties owned by the evil Victoria Cord, who is played by Susan Sarandon, and she is basically a total megalomaniac from the very first scene to the last. She is pure mustache twirling evil. There isn't an ounce of nuance to her character at all. I have no doubt that in her own head, she's pretending to be what she thinks like Trump is or something. They're so lacking in creativity. Anyway. So Victoria Cord, she has discovered the Blue Beetle technology. Where does it come from? Who invented it? Why is it here? When did it arrive? I don't know. The film doesn't address any of these questions in any clear way. It's very disjointed, but they have kind of an opening scene that introduces this Blue Beetle technology is here. She's excavating sites around the world to find it. Why does she have to excavate sites around the world when she already has technology based upon it? That doesn't make any sense to me, but there you have it. And she's clearly very happy with herself that she has this world-dominating technology. What does she actually want to do with it? Well, it's not clear in the beginning of the film. Until later in the film, it becomes clear. She wants to create an army of robotic soldiers to just usher in an Orwellian totalitarian hell. Why? I don't know. Because beautiful money. She has no real power. I just want power. Power is what I want. Okay, fine. So that's your villain, and it's pretty much you're way ahead of it right from the beginning of the movie. And so Jaime's working for her, and he runs into her niece, Jenny Cord, she's pretty nice, and she has a disagreement. She is less enthusiastic about Orwellian world totalitarianism as her dear old aunt, who describes her as her favorite niece, and it's implied that they have this relationship, but yet also that doesn't make any sense because Jenny has a heart of gold, and her aunt is an absolute totalitarian crazy. So how these two were ever like a close aunt and niece makes no sense. But in any case, because Jaime's sister has to take a dump, I shit you not. She demands to take a shit in the guest bathroom of this. I get it's like a resort or something. And she says, "I really want to take a shit in this bathroom." Which could someone explain to me why Hollywood has suddenly decided that like 5-year-old scatological humor is somehow hilarious and delightful? It reminded me of the "you have holes" in Quantumania. And I'm like, I'm noticing this a lot lately. It's not just that they have to MCU humor everything. It's that they MCU 5-year-old humor everything. It's bizarre. It's cringe. And I just thought, that gross. Like, why? That's not funny. That's just gross. Anyway, so his sister, what it's it. I thought I'm not going to say it anyway. His sister said, "I got to take a dump in this bathroom that we're not allowed to take a dump in because it's for guests and the elites or whatever." And that gets Jaime in trouble, and he gets fired. But Jenny offers him a job, and so that basically allows the plot to happen, which is he winds up in the building at the same time that Jenny is stealing the Blue Beetle, and it attaches to him. And he gets the Blue Beetle power, and he spends most of the rest of the movie not knowing how the hell to use it, not even knowing what his purpose is, not even thinking of himself as a superhero, and mostly whining, yelling, and screaming for help for most of the movie. And there is a nonsensical third act that is, my mind went numb while I was watching it because it was so much visual garbage. I just couldn't care. And this was a film that sadly was kind of winning me over in like the first act, in spite of all the issues with it. That, you know, why is it that that sisters in movies now are portrayed as unlikable bi itches? Why are they portrayed as hating their brother? They're unlikable. They're nasty. They're resentful and bitter of everything in the world. And I think this is what Hollywood thinks is the new counterculture: being an insufferable, entitled, unlikable bitch. That is the new currency of being a like female supporting character in films now, especially a family member. It's like, what if his sister were, you know, like, say one thing for Black Panther, but at least, was it Suri? I think it was Suri was her name. Yes, she definitely had the snarky girl boss thing going on. But she was likable. She was at least likable as the tech, the kind of Q to Black Panther, right? She was kind of his Q, like as Q is to James Bond. And I thought, why not have more of that in films? But, you know, anyway. But most of the family dynamic was actually somewhat winning me over because the emotional core of the story is Jaime he's just a hardworking kid. He wants to do right by his family. His father, Alberto Reyes, is a hardworking man with a strong moral center, and he's trying to be the leader of his family while failing miserably. But he's a likable guy, and he cares about his son, and he has a generally positive outlook on life. And I actually got a little bit of Uncle Ben vibes from his father. And I thought that was actually strong. That was a very strong element. George Lopez's Rudy, although he is absolutely a vessel for the director's total unabashed wokeness, he's also he's actually a competent comedian. You may disagree with me. I'm not saying I'm a fan, but I will say that he's able to deliver things in a way that's actually funny about half of the time. So I actually think if they had just dialed back the cringe stuff a little more, if the plot had been a little more structured, had been a little more serviceable, I actually think George Lopez's Rudy could have worked well. He could have worked well as a kind of supporting side character. As it was, he swerves into whining and moaning about how put upon illegal immigrants are in countries where they are illegally settling and disrespecting and disregarding the laws of that country. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute because I have some thoughts about the moral attitudes of this film. But actually, that's not even the worst part of Rudy. What bothers me about Rudy is kind of the same problem the whole film suffers from. It just invents shit when it needs it to be there for the plot. Rudy is basically, he's a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. Fine. Suddenly, the movie needs him to have a magical bullshit device that will allow them to break into a top security corporate building. And he said, "Oh, I just have so happened to be working on this device. And give me a couple hours and I'll get it up and running." What? Like, the film does this. Every time something needs to just appear in the plot so that they can have a reason to do something, it just appears in the plot. And Rudy is the worst example of this. Suddenly, he needs to be an expert pilot of a superhero hovercraft that he's never seen before. And he can do it. Suddenly, Rudy needs to also be a hacker who can hack top secret, high-tech superhero software, and he can just do it. Suddenly, Rudy needs to be interested in all of the geopolitical goings on of the world so he can explain it to his nephew, Jaime. And he just suddenly is. And I'm like, what? So the emotional core was almost there. Unfortunately, what happens is, you know, I've noticed this with a lot of modern cinema. They seem to think that people yelling and screaming in panic and terror when something is happening that's, you know, let's just call it mumbo jumbo. And I mean that in a non-derogatory way, which is mumbo jumbo is anything in a film that is magical, science fiction, time travel, for example, would be mumbo jumbo. The mumbo jumbo in this film is the Blue Beetle, right? That's the mumbo jumbo. Iron Man suit, that's mumbo jumbo, right? So I'm not using that in a critical way. I'm saying the film is introducing something that we must suspend disbelief to accept. And for whatever reason, they seem to think that whenever you introduce mumbo jumbo, the way to sell it is to have everyone screaming and running around and yelling for laughs. And it undermines almost every single scene in the film. So the suit, Kaji Da is what the suit is called. It is a sapient, intelligent organism. It's not really clear whether it's an organism or technology. I think it's technology, but it's an artificial intelligence of some kind. Could be interesting. They never explore its history. They never explore its character. The suit, which is linked, it's very much like the Venom symbiote. It is linked to Jaime's mind. And it should be able to act as a mentor for him, and it doesn't. It mostly just it mostly just autopilots most of the time. Almost everything he does in the film is basically autopilot. So there was this really tantalizing and interesting idea of this suit, this alien suit. Why is it on Earth? Why did it come here? What was it designed to do originally? What do its owners want it to do? Do its owners want it back? What is the nature of its intelligence? What does it actually want with its host? What is the final result of its? None of this is explored. Jaime doesn't even have a dialogue with it. All he ever does is say, "Suit, can you do this? Can you do that?" And occasionally it'll answer. Or he's yelling at, "Oh, where are you taking me? Oh, where am I going? We're in space. Oh my God, are we in space? Oh no, now we're falling." That's pretty much all it consists of. Wouldn't it have been interesting if for 1 minute the film had just shut up for a second and allowed us to have a conversation between Jaime and this sapient artificial entity that is now inside his own consciousness? Why couldn't we have one scene where we don't have that. So what I'm trying to tell you is there were a lot of promising elements of this film, the emotional core of the family, the sort of moral father guiding his son, the interesting science fiction element of a lost artificial intelligence that has found its way to Earth and has now taken possession of this kid. Also, it chooses its host. Why did it choose Jaime? Never explored, never explained, never clear in any meaningful way. That could have been interesting. Why did you choose me? Imagine if the character had just asked that. You could have chosen anyone in my family or anyone on this planet. You could have chosen someone rich and powerful. Why did you choose me, a poor kid from Palermo City? I would have liked to hear the answer to that, assuming it was in the hands of talented writers. So it's Rumble isn't working. Oh shoot! You know what it is? It's because I didn't set up the stream key. I'm sorry. Rumble might be dead. I don't know if I can fix that. Yeah, your captain messed up. Your captain messed up, Star Fury. Because I didn't set up and if I fixed it, well, actually, you know what? Maybe I can fix it. Maybe I can fix it right now. Hang on 1 second. We'll do it live. We will do it live. I think I can fix it. Thanks for looking out. If I go to I don't think I can because I already updated the stream key, but I had started the broadcast already. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the Rumble crowd. I will re-upload it as a recorded live later. So yes, I have to manually do the stream key every time with Rumble because Rumble does not. Rumble's complicated. So, but I will fix that on the restream. So, yeah. There was a lot that could have worked. Now, the first act is not terrible. It is a generic kind of chat GPT story. Where this film goes off the rails is actually the minute he gets the Blue Beetle suit. The minute he gets the Blue Beetle suit, he has zero agency as a character. Why did they think that this would be a good idea for this film? They basically so one of the most important aspects of correctly executing a superhero film is for it to actually be a superhero film. So let me show you something that I have shown you before and you will see often on this live stream, my dear sailors and starnauts. Pull up the link here. Copy the link. I think I have it saved. There it is. Okay, cool. So I've mentioned this before. Let me get my dark mode. Oh my God. Yes, there we go. Okay. So I've shown this before, and this is Blake Snyder of Save the Cat, which is the excellent it's the excellent book for specifically screenwriters, but it works for any storyteller. And he gives you the 10 genres. Now, this is not the traditional genres. These are the 10 types of story that are kind of a Swiss watch. And in order to execute any of these stories, you need to do the elements correctly, right? So, what is obviously a superhero story is fairly obvious, right? It's the most self-explanatory of the genres. The superhero contains a hero with a special power. Now, there are other versions of this, such as like Gladiator or James Bond would be a superhero story. So this power can also be a mission. There's also real life characters like Braveheart is kind of a superhero story. So it contains a hero with a special power, a nemesis who is a self-made version of the hero, and a curse for the hero to surmount or succumb to. The hero can be a reluctant hero with the gift or power thrust upon him or her unwillingly. And there you have it. So examples, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Iron Man, Joker, Raging Bull, Gladiator. Now, in a superhero film, he has to go on a journey. This is why it's so difficult to do superhero sequels, because once a superhero by their nature in a story is kind of apart from the rest of humanity. They have a burden that the rest of humanity can't understand, and they have abilities that set them apart from the rest of humanity. So the problem with this is that they are less relatable than other characters because of their superpower. So what makes them relatable? What makes them relatable is their curse and the fact that they must go on a journey to learn how to learn their responsibility, to learn their mission. This is why origin stories work so well, but sequels often do not. In order for a superhero sequel to work, you essentially have to have them go on another journey, right? And I think this is why bad and lazy writers are doing the Thor is always discovering himself thing. This is why. Because they're trying to keep the story going of him having to go on a journey and discover something. But they're doing it poorly. They're doing it by always having it be, oh, look, Thor has a beer gut again. He has to go find himself again. That's the lame way of doing it. There are films that have done this very well. And I'm going to give you an example. The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, which is actually, that film works so well because it's Batman is now Batman. He doesn't have to go on a journey to become Batman, but he does have to examine how far he's willing to go to defeat the psychopathic Joker. So The Dark Knight is an excellent example of a well-done second sequel superhero story. Maybe one of the greatest superhero films of all time, Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, is an excellently done sequel to the superhero story because in that film, he has to go through the existential crisis of how can I be Peter Parker and have a life with Mary Jane while also doing this, taking on this responsibility that's costing me everything. So, and I do think Spider-Man is one of the best examples of a superhero because he's so relatable. And I always like that about him. Now, why do I bring this up? Because Jaime in this film, he is never in control of the suit. He never has a mentor who's teaching him anything. He never even has an actual objective, ever. He never has an objective in this film, except maybe a momentary in that scene objective, such as, oh, look, your family's in trouble. Oh, I'm going to go save him. But that's not a story arc. That's not a journey he's going on. Most of the time, he's bumbling and fumbling his way through things. He doesn't know what he's doing. And because the villain's objective is so unclear in this film, it's never clear. What is the threat we're actually stopping here? Jaime, as a character, although the actor, Zolo Maridueña, he's very. I have problems with him because they're trying to set him up as a leading man, and the problem is because he has no agency in the film, it undermines it. He's very emasculated as a character. The actor is very charming and likable, and he does have that kind of kid, deer in the headlights, young Peter Parker kind of vibe going on in the beginning, which could have worked well. The problem is because he has no mission, he has no moral purpose in the film, he has no guidance whatsoever, and he doesn't have a clear objective that the villain has that he is trying to thwart, ever. And in fact, there's even a scene, I kid you not, there is a scene in which his geriatric grandmother uses a super-powered laser chain gun. It's the only way I could describe it, folks, okay? Just stick with me on this. And he is in trouble. Jaime, the superhero, is in trouble. She says, "Get behind me, mi amor." And she pulls out the chain gun and wipes out all these guards. By the way, the one moral conceit that he does have is, no, we don't kill people. Blue Beetle said, no, we don't kill. The suit is bloodthirsty as hell. It just wants to kill everybody. And he's like, no, we can't, no, we're not going to kill people. And he has to talk the suit out of it all the time. And I think, well, I could get on board with that. He's a classic superhero, and it's his family obviously instilled this in him. It's, it's the moral voice of his father. Then they have a scene in which his family is coming to save him. They gun down everyone in their path. They step on people with a giant beetle. Where did that come from? I don't know. We'll get into that. But his family laugh with glee as they mow down, hundreds of faceless, nameless corporate goons, and they're happy to do it. His grandmother mows them down with a chain gun and celebrates, and the film plays it for laughs. And I'm like, so where did he get this moral compunction about, we don't kill people? This film is nothing if not littered with missed opportunities. So anyway, so what is this film? Well, I'll tell you what it is. This is a dude with a problem story. And it's, it's not that it can't work, but I don't think it's the right story structure for an origin film of a superhero. It just, especially if you want this superhero to be a leading man. So dude with a problem means with the ordinary man or woman facing extraordinary circumstances, dude with a problem contains an innocent, which definitely fits Jaime in the story, unaware that he or she is being dragged into a dangerous world. A sudden event, getting the Blue Beetle, which thrusts our hero into this world, often without warning, and a life or death battle in which the preservation of self, family, society, or world is crucial. I would argue this film really cares nothing at all about preserving society. It cares nothing at all about the world being saved, because what are they saving it from? I don't know. A vague, generalized possibility of a legion of super soldiers, which, is Orwellian and suitably terrifying. But what is she going to do with it? Not ever clear. So really, the preservation of family is all that it's about. But it's not even a good dude with a problem story, because in a successful dude with a problem story, it has to end with a triumph of the spirit. It has to end with a triumph of the spirit. And there is a third act kind of moment. Well, no, I'm not going to let it off the hook. If there were to be a triumph of the spirit in this film, it would be that Jaime ultimately learns that mercy is the best policy, and that his family is his greatest strength. And that could almost work if the family weren't so insufferably annoying, so completely contradictory of his own morals. And then what happens in the end of the film to the villain? The villain is basically, the villain defeats himself. One of the villains defeats himself and the other villain. In the most murderous way possible. And he is happy with that. So he doesn't even stick to his own conclusion. that his morals were justified. He doesn't kill, but he's happy to stand by and watch his enemy be killed, which doesn't make any sense at all if this is a successful triumph of the spirit. And so it didn't need to be a dude with a problem story. I would argue that there were a couple of core characters that would have worked well. You could have had Jaime. You could have had the mostly likable Jenny Cord character, who's his love interest, and then his father is the voice of moral character, and then you have the suit, Kaji Da. The suit is the mentor that teaches him how to fight, but he also acts as a moral mentor to the suit. That could have been a good film if you had organized, and you could have had Rudy as the comic relief and some of the family. I would have cut down all the family scenes to about a fifth of what they were, maybe a tenth. And then you just have it, or those core characters, the father, the suit, Jaime, Jenny. Those are the core characters. Obviously, you have the antagonist. An interesting plot for the antagonist would have been nice. But hey, we can't have everything we want, can we? Jeez. Yeah, I could go on all day about this. All the villains defeat themselves. There is not one just woke claptrap line that they did not shove into this. One thing I've noticed about the leftist philosophy, they hate fascist totalitarianism. Okay, that's reasonable. They hate imperialism. Okay, it's fair. Yeah, makes sense. Don't like imperialism. They hate tyranny of the minority of the rich. They eat the rich. They hate the rich. But the one thing they don't hate ever is communism. Now, isn't that interesting? Because there's a line in this where Susan Sarandon's character, who, as I mentioned, is pure mustache-twirling evil without an ounce of subtext or nuance, basically says, oh, yes, we're going to use this to defeat the commies. Or she says something like, when we were defeating the commies. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so interesting because this is totalitarian thinking, choosing a side. It's like, oh, I don't like your kind of totalitarianism. I like my kind of totalitarianism. It's like, I don't like any of it. I don't like any of it. In fact, there's that great quote. I don't like totalitarianism, especially your favorite kind. And that is to imply the tribalistic nature of humans. So let me get this straight, right? We hate the imperialists and we hate colonizers. Okay, got it. And I would imagine the reason we hate imperialists is the idea of people from a foreign land coming into a country, settling that country without the permission of the indigenous or native population, setting up an enclave in which they isolate themselves and do not assimilate into the culture, then begin demanding that they are entitled to all the resources of that land and that they should be privileged, even though they came there without invitation and illegally set up an enclave. They are now entitled to exploit all the resources of that country. Would that be imperialism? Would that be a colonialistic practice? Because that would be also something this film is very much in favor of, i.e. illegal immigration. So I don't want to get into a bunch of political wonkery, but the point is, I don't even want this conversation in films. Why can't you just make it a film? Why couldn't you just make it that they're legal immigrants? Why couldn't you just do that? Just say that they immigrated to the country. They're having a hard time. Times are hard. And just leave out all of the whiny, self-pitying garbage. For decades, we've listened to this. We've listened to this about how put upon and how hard up, how miserable and oppressed all the people that violate the law, come here illegally, disrespecting the laws of the countries they're coming to. Specifically, since the subject of the film is the United States, that's basically what they're talking about. They illegally came to Texas, which I was able to figure out by doing Google searches because this film is so incredibly unclear on the geography. It makes no sense at all. So this family comes to the country illegally. They feel that they're oppressed. And I just think, honestly, if you just make it a film about immigrants struggling and a family trying to come together and some of the unfair things they encounter and just let the film show their life and just let them be who they are, you would actually have a lot of the audience on your side. You would actually have a lot of people invested. I think one of the strongest elements of this film was the actual family emotional core. The idea of this kind of hard on their luck family, Jaime, a good kid trying to do right by them. That was a powerful and positive emotional component. But because in woke propaganda storytelling, it's not enough for you to simply absorb the story. It's not enough for there to be nuance or subtext or for you to draw your own conclusions as a viewer. No, you have to be told. You have to be told what to think about everything that you're watching. And so every 10 minutes, we are just inundated with another whiny, self-pitying, frankly cliche at this point line about the imperialists, the colonizers, it's so unfair. All the rich people have, but we have not. Meanwhile, by the way, these characters are dreaming of being rich themselves. So I don't understand how that works. How can a poor person who hates the rich dream of being rich? It doesn't make any sense to me. Wouldn't that mean you're becoming what you hate? So we're treated to all this whininess throughout the entire film. And you know something? I can't be bothered to care. I don't care. Like, quit whining. Stop whining. Nobody cares anymore. We had Rachel Zegler of Snow White fame. She participated, as Drunk 3PO pointed out, she participated in the Twitter bullying of Gina Carano and the Twitter attacking of Gina Carano over the pronouns issue. And she deployed the fascistic and bullying totalitarian tactics of the modern left. She deployed those against Gina Carano happily and was happy to pile on. Now that Rachel Zegler, because she's an insufferable, entitled brat, is being piled upon, she's tweeting things like, we should be kinder. I just wish people were kinder. It's like, this shtick, this con that they're trying to pull, it's old. It's old. It's wearing thin. You go around beating the crap out of people, doxing people, threatening people, bullying people, and demanding that audiences stop being bigots and support your film. And then when the audience has something to say about it, now you want the world to be kinder. Now you want everyone to be tolerant and kind to you. Well, sorry. You get what you give. That's just the way it works in the world. I don't have any particular animus toward Rachel Zegler. She's young. She's entitled. But my point is, this film is about all of this whining. They want us to just, have a big old pity party. And it's like, you know what? But on the other hand, how have you treated the country that you've come to? How have you treated the laws of this country? How have you treated the people who ask in the public square, in the public conversation, hey, maybe there's a better way we can do things? Bigot! That's how you treat those people who dissent, who disagree, not even necessarily disrespectfully. And so anyone that has any dissent whatsoever to any of these leftist woke talking points about my immigration and my socialism and my fascism and my imperialism, it's like, how do you treat people who are trying to converse with you about these issues? You treat them like garbage. You treat your audience like garbage. You have treated this country that is one of the most welcoming and generous countries in the world. You treat it like garbage. So I am sorry, Mr. Soto. I am sorry, Mr. Lopez. I cannot be bothered to give a shit about your fucking whining. I just can't. So anyway, Captain Rant over. I said, another sip of coffee. And why am I saying, listen, my dear audience, do not let these whiners get to you anymore. Like, I feel like we're really at a point where we go to these films now, and I think what it's really getting to is it's sad. It's pathetic. It's like you can't tell a story that is anything but self-indulgent and whiny. It's a bad look, man. It's a bad look. And I just think what they don't seem to get is that these tricks don't work on us anymore. Only the goodwill of people willing to listen is what allowed these fatuous arguments to secrete themselves into all of our culture in the first place. So do not let these guilt trips work on you. Do not let them dissuade you. Do not buy into them. I have, this is a film that got in its own way. The third act of this film is garbage. Let me just explain to you how the plot in Blue Beetle works. The plot in Blue Beetle works like this. There is zero setup for anything that is paid off in this film. None. Absolutely none. The film simply like a child making up lies as they go along to cover, their hand being caught in the cookie jar. That's how this film works. It just we need a way to rescue Jaime. Oh, well, it just so happens my father was the original Blue Beetle. Oh, he was, and he has a giant beetle tank that we can use. Oh, well, we probably would need someone to pilot that. Well, it turns out that Uncle Rudy can pilot it. Oh, okay. Well, we probably need some weapon. Oh, it turns out we have an entire arsenal of weapons that can help Jaime. Oh, that's good. But we probably need someone who's trained to use them. Well, it turns out that the geriatric grandmother, who's also obese, not too light on her feet, she was a revolutionary, don't you know? And she's infiltrated underground complexes before, and she knows how to do that. And she's able to plan an entire operation to save her grandson. Oh, okay. That this film is like a pathological liar. It just makes up another lie every 10 seconds to make the next thing in the plot happen. And the result of this is they throw all this crap at you, and there's no actual development of it. There's also a weird fetishization of Jaime's sexuality in this. I find really off-putting. There's a scene in which, so whenever he transforms back into Jaime after he's been Blue Beetle, he's naked. So what happens? He lands naked in his living room in front of his whole family, all of them. This is one of the most cringe, weird, what else can I call it but icky? It's icky, okay? He gets up and it's almost played like a kind of a teenage comedy film where like he winds up naked in front of his friends or the girl he likes or something. That's kind of how it's played, but it's not the girl he likes or his buddies. It's his family, his grandmother, his sister, his father. Oh my God, why is this? Why is this? And then there's a scene in which he's about to make out with Jenny, and it's, it's fine. It's charming. It's a romantic scene. And then Rudy, of course, butts in because remember, folks, in modern superhero films, we are not allowed ever to go 10 seconds without a stupid, manipulative, tension undermining joke. Never. And so, of course, Rudy has to barge in and interrupt their kiss. And then he points out his nephew's erection. And then his nephew has to hide his erection. And I'm like, what? There's something so clinical about how they do it in this film. And then in the final moments of the film, he's kissing Jenny. By the way, she's taller than him. She seems more mature. His character is kind of a whiny boy in most of the film. He has no agency whatsoever. He never takes the lead. He's not a leader. He has no mission. He has no objective, no purpose. He never, ever states a kind of ethic for his role as a superhero. His family leads him in almost every scene. She, on the other hand, is a successful corporate woman. She's not insufferable. She's not an insufferable girl boss. I actually think she's pretty sympathetic. The problem is she's a mismatch because she doesn't, when she kisses him, it's awkward. It's awkward, man. It's like it doesn't fit. It's like this, that it feels unearned. It's unearned. And anyway, as she's kissing, well, of course, the suit, which has a female voice, by the way, and I'm going to get into that in just a second, but the suit says, you seem to have blood rushing to your mid region. First of all, what a freaking weird clinical way to put that. Number two, why? Like, why? Why are we observing this? As if this As if we cannot simply assume as the audience that this occurs in all human romantic, you know, interactions. Like, why can't we just let that be read? You know what I'm saying? But no, so there is a weird fetishization of him and his sexuality, and the only way I can describe it, and it's not that you can't have sexual jokes. I'm not being a prude here. I'm just saying the way they do it is clinical and odd. And what I find interesting about it is it contributes to an overall pattern in this film where Jaime is constantly infantilized and emasculated at every turn in this movie. He is never allowed he is never allowed to be the moral voice. I'm not saying he has to be the moral voice in the beginning because that's the role of his father, I think. But then he becomes the moral voice at the end, but that never happens. There's never a clear objective of what he's supposed to do. He's never the leader. He never has any training. He's just screwing around on autopilot most of the movie. Most of the time he's just screaming because he doesn't know what the hell's happening to him. So all of that, so that's number one. Second, his family treats him like a child, even though he's the one member of the family who's just graduated college and is working his ass off to try and, build a life for them. And he's the only member of his family other than his father with a positive attitude. Everyone else is super negative. His sister is an absolute constant buzzkill in this movie. She is annoying. She's obnoxious. She's negative all the time. He's working his ass off to try and help this family, which is actually, he has a lot of good save the cat moments in this film that make him very likable. And it's set up that never went anywhere, unfortunately. And so he's infantilized by his family always, which is weird because he's taking the most initiative to better the family. Like, he's basically taking responsibility as the new generation to carry the family forward and to get them that big house that they're dreaming of and to get them to finally have a life of abundance. So why then does the film and the family constantly treat him as the most clueless, hapless character in the movie? So that's not, and then now he's merged with this consciousness, right? Which has a female voice. Now, this didn't hit me until pretty much the end of the film when it kind of the preponderance of all this kind of landed. And I was like, something is not right here. And I kept feeling all through the film, something about this relationship between him and the Blue Beetle suit is not right. And the thing most top of mind was, why isn't he talking to it? Why isn't he asking it questions? Why isn't it teaching him anything? What does it want? I don't know. But then it hit me. I'm like, it's a female voice who is now part of his own physiology and is commenting on his physiology. And it's basically emasculating him because it's forcing him to take on the role of being in a symbiotic, like body connected symbiosis with a female consciousness. So in other words, he's being given a female consciousness. And I think what that has the impact of doing is putting him in a weirdly emasculated role. Now, you may say, but Captain, are we to simply ignore Friday, the AI voice in Tony Stark's suit in the Avengers films? Would that not be emasculating? And I would say a fair point. However, I considered this and I thought, it's not emasculating with Tony Stark. Now, why is that? Well, I'll give you a couple of reasons. Number one, Tony Stark has a kind of flirty relationship with the Friday AI. He has little banter with her. It's clear that her personality is meant to be kind of witty and sarcastic like he is, so they can kind of banter with each other, which is how he talks to women that he's dating. That's how he flirts with women he's interested in. And of course, he's a playboy. Of course, he likes women. And so he has a suit AI that he's clearly designed to titillate him, to please him. He's basically created a suit AI he can flirt with like it's a babe, basically. So that is why, and also this is the most important part. He chose that AI. He chose that AI as an assistant. It's not part of his consciousness. It's not bonded to his physiology. It is an assistant that he has chosen to help him. So it's really no different than if Pepper Potts were his assistant communicating with him on like a remote line. It would basically be no different. So that would not be in any way emasculating. It's a different story when you have a teenage, a young man who is now sharing his consciousness with a female voice. It's weird. It's extremely weird. And by the way, if this were a female character, I would think it was weird if she had a male consciousness sharing her body. I think it would be probably even worse, frankly. That would be a very weird dynamic. So I just feel that in this case, unless maybe he had kind of a flirty relationship with her, I don't know if that would work. But maybe if it were like if we could just understand the wall of separation between those two minds, it could still work. But in any case, it was not the choice I would make. I think it should have been a male voice in his head, especially since it's a lethal voice. It is a destructive. I mean, frankly, more like the Venom symbiote, I would say. Not the same personality, but like the masculine voice of the Venom symbiote is to Eddie Brock. I think you would have had to have the same thing with Jaime. And then the difference becomes, and it could have been like a gentle voice, but it could also have been a voice that's gently saying, let's finish him off. And he's like, no, we don't kill people. And that would have been a dynamic between these two masculine identities actually arguing for what is their moral purpose, what is their personality, what are they after. And I think that could have been really fertile territory. But unfortunately, it was not to be. It was not to be. Let me see. Anything I missed on this? Yeah. All the ways he was emasculated. He's shorter than his love interest. He has the least agency in the whole film. Now, why is that? They are always whining about female characters not having agency. Isn't it interesting that they won't allow the title character of the film to have any agency in his own film? He by the way, he follows the Captain Marvel plot, basically. The whole plot of the film is he has all these powers he doesn't understand. He discovers how to use his powers. That's basically his hero's journey. He's whining and squealing all the time, which makes him seem boyish, which, by the way, contradicts his personality in the professional world, because in his daily life, he's hardworking. He goes to job interviews. He works hard to better the lot of his family. But then when he's in the suit, he's whiny and terrified all the time. So, yes, that is Blue Beetle. It's really rather... How can I even describe the experience of watching this? I was... First act, I'm thinking, no, this isn't so bad. This could be going somewhere. It's a little on the nose. All right, fine. Yeah, so we have to listen to the whining talking point. Then we get to the second act, and I'm like, what? Why doesn't he ask the suit this? Why doesn't the suit teach him that? This is so confusing. Why is it like, the anxiety starts to happen. And then the third act, my God, there's literally a scene. I love this. So Jenny Cord, her father was Ted Cord, the original Blue Beetle. When is this introduced? At the exact second the film decides this is a thing. She's like, we need a way to stop the villain. Oh, well, let me just show you right to the Beetle cave that he's had for all these years that I've never mentioned up until this point. Oh, yeah, by the way, my dad was the original Blue Beetle. How did he have Blue Beetle powers? Oh, well, don't worry about it. By the way, we have this giant beetle tank that'll help us annihilate all the bad guys. Like, when she was fleeing from her murderous psychopathic aunt, why did this never occur to her? Like, why did she not go to the Blue Beetle cave? I don't know. And so all this gets introduced. Well, then Rudy, who suddenly is a pilot and a hacker and an inventor, all at the exact moment the film decides that he is, pilots this Blue Beetle tank into the villain's castle. And there's a scene where he's, oh, look at this. Oh, he presses a button and he deploys. Basically, I can only describe this as Beetle fart gas. Like, the Beetle farts on all the bad guys. And you could just tell that, like, it is so cringe. It's like, that's not even a funny fart joke because it's a machine. It's not even a real beetle. It's not like, it's worse than Jar Jar Binks humor at this point. And theater is pretty empty, folks. So what would the captain rate this? I give this film 1 bar out of 10 on the epaulets. This film is garbage. It is absolute garbage, and that owes a lot to the second and especially the third act. The third act is a bunch of freaking nonsense. It is multiple, like the plot reverses itself and then reverses itself again multiple times for no reason. He has the most it's melodrama. The melodrama in this film is ridiculous. He has multiple afterlife sequences with family members. It's just they whine so much about all their plight and how put upon they are and how unfair society has been to them. And it's like, why are you making an enemy of most of the people that watch the film? I just don't understand that, because you're basically saying my oppressor is you, audience. You're my oppressor. Unless you're Latinx, then you're not. Then you're part of the club. But if you are not Latinx, then you need to do better, is what this film is basically saying. Look, I'm so numb to that shit now that honestly, that's like the least of my critiques of this film. My main critique of the film is it does absolutely nothing with its main character, and it is a pathological liar. In the way that Ant-Man Quantumania throws a bunch of visual garbage at the wall and just hopes it sticks, and just vomits crap at you for 2 freaking hours. This film vomits nonsensical bullshit, increasingly more bullshit arguments in the plot, more bullshit developments in the plot with no setup, no proper payoff. And because it actually had such possibility and yet manages to squander all of it in a garbage plot with a central character with no agency, it was awful to watch. It was awful to watch this movie. And I am aware that I gave Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny 2 bars on the epaulets, and I'm giving this one 1. And is that reasonable? No. So I'm downgrading. I'm downgrading Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny to 1 bar. Well, if I were to be the devil's advocate to myself, I would say that the reason I gave Dial of Destiny 2 bars is probably because at least the villain was kind of interesting. There was that. So yeah, Blue Beetle, garbage. Silverback says the Critical Drinker did a great video on Rachel Ziegler and her recent comments on Snow White. Yes, he did. His recent video has been very good. It was how to ruin your movie in 10 minutes. Star Fury says, Jesus, can't they even get basic facts right? How did you immerse yourself in the movie? Oh, it's so bad, Star Fury. You got to understand. This movie is okay. Have you ever seen a little kid that's been caught in a lie? Where'd you get that cookie? I didn't. It just appeared in my hand. It's like, I didn't take it. So and so, Grandma gave me permission. Grandma said I could have the cookie. Well, Grandma has been. She is right here, and she says she didn't give you permission to eat that cookie. And then the kids go back. Well, but she said that yesterday. She said that yesterday before you asked her today. Oh, I don't think, is that true, Grandma? No, I would never have said that yesterday. Well, it wasn't her that gave me the cookie. It was Uncle so-and-so. You see what I mean? Like, they just invent whatever they need for the lie to continue. That's what the plot of this movie is like. It's like, oh, we need to go save Jaime. Oh, we have a full arsenal of weapons. Where did they come from? Oh, well, my dad was the Blue Beetle. It's like, it's so stupid. Part of the problem is, I can tell you one issue with this film is that the director, was it Angel Manuel Soto? Angel Manuel Soto was a very proud Latinx. The proud Latinx director of Blue Beetle, Angel Manuel Soto, you can tell he loves this family. He loves this family and their characters a little too much. And the problem is that he seemed to think that the way to get at this was to look, Uncle Ben does not go with Peter Parker on every single Spider-Man adventure, okay? Aunt May does not, tag along with a machine gun alongside Peter Parker, okay? Like Mary Jane, Aunt May, Uncle Ben, J. Jonah Jameson, they don't all just pile into a giant spider vehicle and make all the plans for Spider-Man. Okay. like Alfred does not suit up with Batman. This film seems to think that an 80-year-old grandmother who spends her days sewing until the plot decides she was also revolutionary in her heyday, she makes all the plans, figures out the route into the tunnels to infiltrate the enemy lair, and also is an expert in all weaponry. It's weird, okay? I don't go to a superhero film to see the grandmother have all the best crowd-pleasing lines. It's, what can I even describe this as? It's like going to school and like your grandma following you in on the first day of school. Oh, I'm just going to make sure you get to your classroom okay. And it's like, yeah, look, my grandma's awesome. I love my grandma. I'd do anything for my grandma. It's nothing personal. I just, don't follow me the first day. Don't follow me all the way to the classroom, okay? That's what this movie felt like to me. It's like, why is this whole family weirdly with him? Why are they all seeing him naked? What is this? Like, why is this happening? This, it's so all I'm gonna say, with great respect, and by great respect, I mean none, to Angel Manuel Soto, a proud Latinx director. I think you maybe are taking your family with you on just a little too much of your day job. It's like you don't pack the whole family in the van for the superhero adventure, okay? You might just be a little too. There is such a thing as too tight-knit, okay? All right. Grandma's senile. Look, this is not to say the grandmother's not likable. I liked her character. She was fine when she's a little doting grandma and she's sewing. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when the movie decides she's also a revolutionary who handles the ordnance. That's when I have a problem with it. I'm like, this is weird. Why is the grandma still here? Grandma, I'm trying to be a superhero. Go home. It's like, why didn't they just pack him a bag lunch? Oh, well, I brought you a bag lunch. I wouldn't put it past this movie, Frank. They probably just didn't think of it, or it would have been in this movie. Oh, hi, May. Mi amor, I brought you a bag lunch for if you get hungry while you're fighting Susan Sarandon. What is it about like old famous white Hollywood women that like the superhero genre now just loves this now? It's like, we got to go get Susan Sarandon. We got to go get Annette Bening. We got to go find all these old white ladies in Hollywood to like be the villain. Sigourney Weaver's an exception. Look, was she the best villain for Defenders? Probably not. But I just think like, it's weird, okay? It's freaking weird. So how's this movie doing? You guys want to know? Did I miss any good chats? Oh, they're all good chats. What am I saying? Just Star Fury says, wouldn't it be blood rushing to an extremity? I know, Star Fury. I know. And I'm going to share a screen here. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay. Yes, I want to. So, how is this film doing in theaters? I have. Should I do? Yeah, I've been. I just love like the YouTubers that are really good at reporting on the box office. They're just better at this. I just love watching. I just love watching the game broken down this way. And then I think we'll probably grab this story as well. But first, hat tip the angriest man on the internet with a quick report for you on how is the Blue Beetle doing. Let's just take a look, shall we? We'll do that.
From the very first trailer that was released for Blue Beetle, Angel Manuel Soto made it very clear that he's okay if fans are pissed off. with the trailer that ended with the line, "Batman is a fascist" from George Lopez. And some fans were rightly wondering, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, no, this I want to show you because this is basically when an proud director, Latinx director, Angel Manuel Soto, discovered that people did not like that he was maligning Batman as a fascist. By the way, this film, you know what's so weird about this? This is in the same scene where Rudy, played by George Lopez, has just discovered that his favorite hero, the Blue Beetle, when was the Blue Beetle a thing? Just right now. The movie just decided the Blue Beetle was a prior superhero. And he is standing in effectively the Batcave of the original Blue Beetle, and he's praising and admiring the Blue Beetle. Oh, he's so cool, knowing right now that his secret identity was Ted Kord, a billionaire. So in the same scene where Rudy is like, oh, I love Blue Beetle, and oh yeah, he was a billionaire, awesome, even better. And then he's, oh, but Batman's a fascist. So the film's not even consistent. And it is stuffed with messages. It is stuffed with that crap. So if you think that that was just one little, oh, it's just a joke, lighten up, you nerds. Like, it's not that big of a deal. No, trust me, this film was obsessed with the message. Oh, there was a scene in this. I totally forgot. There was a scene in this where so they have this little romance sort of budding between Jaime and Jenny. And there's a scene in which Jenny is simply explaining the family history. Victoria Kord, Susan Sarandon, she was Ted Kord's sister. And when their father died, he left his fortune to Ted Kord, who turned out to be a morally praiseworthy superhero who was helping people. And of course, we have also seen from the very first second she was on screen that Susan Sarandon's Victoria Kord is an absolute foaming at the mouth, power-hungry, totalitarian psychopath. And her own niece is totally estranged from her because she basically considers her a totalitarian, crazy psychopath. There's even a scene when, like, Victoria's trying to, like, make a plea to Jenny, like, we are on the same side. We're family. I want you at my side, and we should be together. I always loved you, Jenny. You've always been my favorite. And then Jenny says, you're nothing like me. I don't like you. And immediately Victoria just, well, in that case, and she pulls up a freaking Uzi, and she, like, in her weirdly, like, geriatric Susan Sarandon, like, weak grip, she's like, she looks like a grandmother aiming an Uzi. She's like, well, screw you. I'm gonna just shoot you right now. I'm like, this movie is ridiculous. This movie is so stupid. But anyway, so Jenny is explaining that this bitch did not get the fortune. And it's like, yeah. And she's like, and so instead of leaving it to my aunt, my grandfather left his fortune and his company to my father. She has not mentioned anything about her father being Blue Beetle or superhero or anything at this point. So that's not even a thing yet in this film, by the way. It's not even the merest hint that there's such a thing as a Blue Beetle. And what does Jaime say? Like any good little soy boy buying, like any good ally, he immediately says, well, that sounds a little, and then she's like, sexist? I know. Like, what? Like, you know that your aunt is a crazy psycho. So let me get this straight. Even if a woman is a crazy psychopath who wants to create a paramilitary invincible army to oppress the entire world and bring it under her totalitarian corporate control, to deny that woman an inheritance is sexist. Okay. Actually, that sounds about right. That sounds about right for modern woke morals. That basically sounds like a typical typical leftist thinking. Well, I know she's a psychopath, murderous bitch, but she's also a woman, and we need more women in STEM, so she should have gotten her inheritance. But I digress. So anyway, this was Soto's response, and he tweets, "As my job is done
for this movie." And Hell Manuel Soto decided that that's good. My job here is done. I pissed off the right people. Well, unfortunately for him, it looks like his movie is a complete and total disaster. We saw the projections. We talked about the previews for this movie. It didn't look like it was going to be very good. It didn't look like it was going to do a lot of things in the box office. In fact, it looks like it was going to be the worst DC opening in recent memory. And that's exactly what has just happened. Blue Beetle dethrones Barbie for the #1 spot in Barbie's like 6th weekend of release. Box office underperformed.
And it is such spin too, because it's like they're basically, oh yeah, Blue Beetle just beat Barbie. Yeah, in its 6th week. What are you talking about? This is opening weekend for Blue Beetle
with low DCU standard. And here's the number. Blue Beetle still eyes $25 million. That is pathetic. That is embarrassing. Here's the official estimate that just came out a few minutes ago. Warner Brothers' Blue Beetle debuted with an estimated $25.4 million domestically this weekend. And as soon as those global numbers come out, it's likely going to be that much more embarrassing for them. And why that is so embarrassing is because just look at what it's up against. This is the worst traditional opening for a DCU movie in history. Check this out. Lower than Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods. Even lower than the Suicide Squad, which opened while COVID was still.
Yes, hat tip, Ryan Kinnell, RK Outpost. Check out his video. He's excellent reporting on box office numbers. The angriest man on the internet. And look at this list. This is by ranking, opening weekend of all DC films. Blue Beetle dead last. That is, what is that even? That's behind Wonder Woman 1984. That's behind Shazam, Fury of the Gods. And they're like, oh, look, it beat Barbie. It beat Barbie.
A thing, and some theaters were still not at capacity, and it opened on the same day on HBO Max. Like, that's pathetic. The Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman 1984 aren't even included in the normal openings for this because of the strange circumstances surrounding their release. Yet Blue Beetle still did less than the Suicide Squad. This is now a movie that is likely to be a $100 million loss for Warner Brothers, despite the fact that they didn't put a whole lot of money into it. It has a budget similar to that of Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and it will be lucky if it gets to $132 million worldwide. And that movie was over a $100 million loss for Warner Brothers and for DC. But one of the reasons.
So there you have it. Check out the rest of the video on RK Outpost. And it's a disaster, folks. Let me just show you something else really fun. Because the coke doesn't end there for the media. And we talk about this, right? Why do they want to protect these films? Well, I'll tell you why. Because this film is packed with all of their woke garbage political messaging. It's just full of their propaganda bullshit. So every time one of these films fails, it is a black mark it is a sign that people don't like what you're producing. They don't like your message. It doesn't work. Woke storytelling is garbage. It's garbage. So here you go. People are posting this from the Daily Dot. People are posting empty Blue Beetle screenings to highlight the film's flop status. By the way, my film screening, I went on Thursday, and it was about 10 people, I would say, in the whole theater. Thanks to Barbenheimer, movie theaters are busier than they've been in years, yet there's shockingly little hype for the next superhero blockbuster, Blue Beetle. And she's like, Blue Beetle fans already. What fans? What Blue Beetle fans? Who are you talking about? Blue Beetle fans already accused Warner Brothers of failing to promote it properly, prioritizing the beleaguered Flash over DC's first Latino-led film. This is bigoted racism. My God. It should say Latinx. It should say Latinx. That's problematic. That's very, very problematic, and I'm very offended. Combine this with 2023's palpable superhero fatigue. No, it's not superhero fatigue. Superheroes are just fine. We love superheroes. We nerds made them popular because we spent all that time reading about the adventures of Peter Parker and Matt Murdock and Bruce Wayne. This is woke propaganda, garbage storytelling, superhero appropriation fatigue is what This is the correct term for what you're attempting to identify here. And it's easy to see why Blue Beetle's flop status became a meme. You know why it's becoming a meme? Because you fucking liars in the media never tell the truth. That's why it's becoming a meme. Because people they're laughing at you, media. They're laughing at you because you lie and you try to gaslight all of society into believing your woke ideas are beautiful and they work and everyone likes them and nobody agrees with those angry, racist, right-wing MAGA people like Matt Taibbi and Elon Musk and Bill Maher, those right-wing crazy fascists. Nobody agrees with them. You know what I mean? And it's like you present this lie, the big like in the best traditions of Joseph Goebbels. You present big lie after big lie after big lie, and we're just free enough still in this society. You haven't claimed enough of our free speech rights. There's just enough that we can meme you, and we can show you that nobody is buying these tickets. Nobody wants to see this garbage. Nobody cares about Angel Manuel de Soto or El Soto, whatever the hell it is. Who cares? And his whining about how difficult it is to illegally colonize other countries and demand total entitlement to all their resources, and then call them bigots for objecting to your imperialism. So the imperialism of the pro-illegal immigration advocates, such as Angel Manuel de Soto. I keep wanting to say de Soto. Why do I keep wanting to say that? It's Angel. This is pushback. This is pushback. That's why people are memeing on it. Actually, I'm not going to play that because I have to launch a new tab. Forget that. So look, this is what they're posting right here. So they're basically showing these shots. Nobody's buying. And this is super easy to do. You just go on basically any ticket site. You can grab this. But this is the one I like. So this was a tweet from Tom Davidson. Who is that? I don't know. Tickets sold for Blue Beetle's IMAX debut at 5:30 p.m. on August 18th compared to tickets sold for the 1:45 p.m. screening of Oppenheimer on the same day. Now, I suppose it would be a good idea to verify this, but honestly, I don't. This rings true to me. I think that is just hilarious. More people want to see Oppenheimer is much more worth your time by about 10 miles than Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle, what? Oh, I would never have even gone to see this movie. And it's amazing. It's like I was the most fair-minded about this film as I think I could reasonably be. And you just heard what I think of it. So there you go. So anyhow, it's not doing well, folks. It's not doing well. And I also have this one real quick, because there was a couple of paragraphs in this report from Deadline that cracked me up. So, because I was just speaking to you of media gaslighting. And so we have the Blue Beetle lands at 25 million. This from Deadline, and typical data on how it's doing. But my dear sailors and Stardust, I draw your attention, if you please, to the third paragraph. I would say it's like fourth or fifth, whatever. This paragraph here. Why the under delivery here on Blue Beetle? Even at $30 million, that isn't big enough. That isn't a big enough start for this $104 million production. The movie gets a B+ cinema score overall, which explains it all. Under 18 on CinemaScore gave it an 8. Grades were better. On ComScore, Screen Engine's Post Track, where the movie gets a 90%, with Latino and Hispanic moviegoers who led the charge at 39% to Caucasians, 27% turnout, and 75% grade. Who cares? Why do people care about this? Why should we, as a modern, enlightened society, give a shit what the skin color of a moviegoer is? This is ridiculous. Look at how obsessed they. By the way, this is bigotry. This This is pronounced Latinx. This is not pronounced. Latino is a bigoted, hateful, genocidal term. I'm just so tired of having to explain it to these media people. It's insensitive and it's problematic. It is pronounced Latinx. Who looks at the world this way but a racist? I'm just saying. But this isn't the end of it. However, the result here for Blue Beetle isn't shocking. Next to other Latino, it's pronounced Latinx, bigot, and Hispanic-fueled action picks, i.e. Alita, Battle Angel, Spy Kids, and the R-rated Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Have I forgotten any other of their proud people's films? I'll have to do my research. All unadjusted. I gotta get rid of this. Get rid of this ad. There you go. Why wasn't this movie even strutted at San Diego Comic-Con in a perfect world without a SAG-AFTRA strike? It would have been with Cobra Kai star Zolo Maridueña and Blue Beetle cast spreading the gospel of the film, much like Gal Gadot on the first Wonder Woman. There was buzz that Warner's had Hall H co-booked with Legendary for a Blue Beetle Dune Part 2 combo. But still, even sans stars, how much does it cost for a studio to rent 2 movie auditoriums, popcorn and soda, and a 2-night hotel accommodations for a director so that the movie can be shown off to fans and screamed across social media? Like, who cares? Like, what is it? Why are you? I mean, I know you got a job to do, Anthony D'Alessandro, but like, why are you so invested in this? Like, just, you know, I guess this. Why did this movie fail? It failed, sir. Let me help you out, sir. Mr. Anthony D'Alessandro of Deadline. Let me help you out, sir. This film is garbage. The plot was ridiculous. There was no setup or payoff. It is not a proper superhero film. It is a due to the problem story and a poorly executed one. There is no moral care in the film that makes there's no moral consistency throughout the entire film. There's no objective that's clear on the behalf of the villain. There's no clear objective on behalf of the main character. There's no mentor or mentee relationship. The main character has no agency. The romance, although well-meaning, is awkward. The jokes don't land. They're stupid. The tired, cliche, just depressing worldview of the woke mind virus is just plastered all through this film. And as much as you don't want to hear this, we're tired of it and we don't care. Your whining is pathetic. It's pathetic. That is what you have no journalistic credibility to be asking how much would it cost to rent one auditorium to promote it? It would have made no difference, sir. It would have made no difference. How many of these films have to fail before you fucking idiots get this? It doesn't matter how much you promote a turd. It isn't going to sell. It isn't going to sell. Decorum, Captain. Decorum. Order here on the deck. Restrain yourself, sir. That is unbecoming of an officer in the service. I'm just saying, like, what's it going to take for these? You know, they're such liars. I'm not really upset about it. I'm just having fun because it boggles the mind. How could you do this for a living? How could you do this? How could you lie? Just pretend to be a freaking. They're just going to hold back on the F-bombs a little bit here. How could you pretend to be a freaking idiot? And I don't understand. Why can't they just promote it more? It should have made money. I don't get it. I just could never do this and look at myself in the mirror every morning. I just couldn't. This is why I find it so amusing that he's like, oh, I'm Sherlock Holmes and I'm sleuthing it out. Anyhow, Starfury message for censoring YouTube. They won't ever let you have your say, Starfury, and it makes me very unhappy. Starfury says nicely grilled Latinx heart with a oh jeez, Starfury. It's you nihilistic. Anyhow, perhaps Mr. Soda will enjoy his new career. Do you want cheesy fries with that double whopper? Yes, exactly. You know what? You know what? So this new show, The Fallout, like I've been playing a lot of Fallout lately, and I do love the kind of gallows humor. I know you'd appreciate this, Starfury. I love the gallows humor in Fallout, and I like that there's a mixture of gallows humor, but also like the just the dark, sinister nature of living in a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland, and it kills me. It kills me that they're making this TV show on Amazon of the Fallout series, and and this is one occasion where there's no source material that they could ruin in terms of they could have a diverse cast, and it's very natural for them to have a diverse cast. It could be fine, but they're going to ruin it. They're going to destroy it. They're going to ruin Fallout. They're going to ruin it because they're going to fill it with all of this shit. It takes place in an alternate history that's not even our history, 200 years after a nuclear war. They could completely tell stories that are unmoored from modern politics. They could still tell allegory stories. They could still have topical issues woven in a kind of allegorical way, the way Star Trek did it. They're not going to do that. It is going to be strong female whammon kicking ass is what it's going to be. It is going to be such garbage, and it just kills me because I just think Fallout could be great. Yeah, Starvery says, do you want to bet they screw the pooch on the Fallout series? Dude, it's like no bet here. It is going to happen. There was this great Louis C.K. joke I remember a long time ago. He's like, I don't understand how it's even possible. Like the fact that a woman ever accepts a date from a man is a miracle of creation because it's basically like she gets in a car with a man that she's never like formed a relationship with. And she's like, gosh, I sure hope he doesn't do what he's going to do, meaning like something violent or whatever. I just think that's funny, right? It's a funny joke. Anyway, that's just what it is with these new it's like if I am saying I hope they don't screw up Fallout, that is me just saying I hope they don't do what they're going to do. Like what they are 100% going to do. That's like how can they can't help themselves, Starfury. They don't have the capability. This is all they know. It's the only language they speak. And part of it is just they live. They're fish that don't even know they're wet. They're swimming in the soup that is LA, the hive mind. I'm being quite serious about that. I hear, I love Chris Gore over on Film Threat because he talks to a lot of people in the media, and I should say the film industry, not the media. And it's interesting to hear from some of them because I would say he interviews a lot of indie filmmakers, so they're a little more based than your typical Hollywood type, but you still hear them talk about, very sympathetically talking about the writer's strike and the different things. And what strikes me about it is sometimes I think they don't even know. They don't even know how poorly received this garbage is sometimes because it's just what they eat, sleep, drink, breathe. It just is. To them, a moderate worldview is to allow the possibility that immigration should be legal. That would be a far right extremist view to them. Like the idea that maybe we should wait until children become teenagers before they can decide they're the opposite gender and become sterilized. Maybe we should wait till they're just teens before we do that. That would be a moderate view in the world they live in. So it's hard for them to honestly even conceive of why people respond so poorly to this stuff. And so, yes, they're going to turn Fallout into a bunch of woke garbage. How? It takes place in an alternate future in a post-apocalyptic wasteland with no connection whatsoever to modern politics. Don't worry, they'll find a way. They don't know what else to do. They couldn't even. Okay. So, Blue Beetle, we are there. Now, listen, my dear sailors and star nuts, I have an important question. Attention on deck. The captain has an important question for all of you, my dear viewers. If you have not yet liked or subscribed, please do. This is the Captain's Cast live on the Swords and Starships channel, live on X, aka Twitter, and YouTube, and it will be restreamed on Rumble because we had a technical difficulty today. It was certainly not operator error. And I have a question for you, wherever you're watching, viewing. Could you spare a moment of your time to cancel your Netflix to help the poor, impoverished, and very oppressed film actors and writers who desperately need your sponsorship? You could give hope to a suffering writer or actor with as little as $10 a month, with as little as a $10 a month withheld from Netflix. You could be part of the solution. And I will even send you a picture. Your captain will mail you a picture of the life that you have saved on that picket line with your $10 withholding from Netflix. Would you consider it? I know you're busy and life has its important, responsibilities, but I'm not asking much. I'm just saying these actors have suffered for you. They have suffered, and the world just ignores them. They live in squalor. I've heard let me give you one example. In this one block of Rodeo Drive, these poor writers cannot get healthy, sanitary access to oat milk lattes, lightly stirred with just a drizzle of caramel. 180 degrees precisely, please. Have not had any clean designer coffees to drink in weeks. Things you and I take for granted. Some don't even have the basic necessity of a $10 million mansion to shelter them. Would you consider, my dear sailors and Stardust, supporting these actors by perthehill.com canceling and boycotting Netflix? It's the least you could. I mean, look at this. Look at these faces. Look at these faces and tell me that you could turn away. You could change the channel if you want, but they'll still be there, living in squalor on the streets. The simplicity of subscribing to streaming services like Netflix also makes them simple to unsubscribe from. This from thehill.com. All you have to do, my dear viewer, is click cancel membership. That's all it takes, and a life can be saved. It could be the easiest, yet most important boycott in decades. Yet the fact that union members and their liberal, noble, righteous supporters are not advocating vociferously for such a boycott reveals deep flaws in today's labor movement. Will you turn away? Will you not act when called upon? In 2023, Netflix's stock has already soared over 40%. They don't need the money. Those who think that the current actors and writers' strikes are having much of an impact on investors' outlook for Netflix's future profits are fooling themselves. They are woefully mistaken. The reason this particular strike is so tragic and yet so important is that it directly addresses the threat of artificial intelligence to labor. The actors and writers unions are worried that text generators like ChatGPT could write screenplays that exhibit actual talent, and that an actor's image could be used to create CGI characters without any humans involved. If consumers don't show solidarity with actors and writers now, it will be their jobs that AI comes for next. Don't let this happen to you. Anyway, I'm breaking character. I can't take it anymore. You know what's so funny about this? I actually agree with this one point. I agree with it. Look, the idea that like you could just have your scanned into the machine. You're in the Matrix now. They could just use your likeness forever and ever. Look, that's not going to happen. No, don't misunderstand. Companies will try to make this happen. That is not what I'm saying. Trust me, they are going to try and make this happen. However, I think society is a little more adaptable to things like that. This is like the McDonald's workers, right? They want $25 an hour for McDonald's. Now, everyone deserves to have, fair compensation for their work. The problem is when you demand an unrealistic amount of money for the level of value that you're providing to a corporation, essentially you're doing a job that effectively anyone could do. And that is a good job that is needed in society because it's an entry level job and we got to have those. But if you demand a massive salary for a very low skilled job that is ubiquitous, you are asking to be replaced by AI. So I submit to you that if you don't want AI to start replacing writers and actors, you might want to consider actually having a little more humility and actually considering your craft valuable and precious and actually listening to your audience. Poohman Blue says, yo ho ho, welcome aboard, Tom. Welcome, Tom. Tom says, I think I walked in on a bit of sarcasm. Tom, I'm so glad you're here. Could you spare a moment for an actor or writer in need? Labor is not a priority to tech companies. Their algorithms and customers are. Any boycott-induced lapse in Netflix's subscriber base will send its stock reeling and bring its executives to the bargaining table. You could make this happen, Tom. For just $10 a month, you could just forgo that. You could save a life. Here's the problem with this. Look, I would agree you should boycott Netflix because of the shitty garbage that the writers and actors who perform in those programs have largely produced. You know what? The tech giants like Netflix, the executives like Bob Iger, the actors like Ron Perlman. You think there's only one way to lose your house? The entitled, insufferable actors like Rachel Zegler. I demand to be paid. I demand it. It's like she's like Prince Joffrey. Okay, why do people not like Rachel Zegler? Because if she were made queen, she would be torturing Sansa Stark. That's why. So screw Rachel Zegler. I just wish people would be kind. Dude, that's what Joffrey would say if he weren't being promoted to king. He'd be like, I just wish people would be kind. Anyhow, the problem is they can all just eat each other. They have all participated in that. This is like, this is why the media narrative here is so pathetic, because they are asking us, the audience, to take sides. On the one hand, you've got Bob Iger saying, well, this isn't productive. And the audience surely wants you to come back to work and, stop being so unreasonable. And then the actors and writers over here saying, like, you should be supporting us. We're writing and acting for you. We act so hard for you. We act really, really hard. And you're not appreciating it. And then you have the media over here whose numbers are cratering and nobody cares about you anymore. You're being replaced by YouTube and X/Twitter. Tucker Carlson gets fired from Fox News. He doesn't need Fox News. He just goes on X. He's now Tucker on Twitter. And it's like, we don't need you. And yet suddenly they need us. And look at what put this idea in their heads, my dear sailors of Star Nuts. What got them thinking that they could start whining to us about taking sides in this issue? Why do they want us to take sides? Because they've seen what we can do. How? How about 10 failures in a row for Marvel, for Disney? How about Bud freaking Light? Okay. How about Target? They have seen how the bread is buttered. They know it's we that butter the bread. We, the butterers of society. And now they want our help. They want us to pick sides in their war. Dude, this is like, I kind of feel like the Let me see if I can find. Could I find this for you? I might be able to. I might. Just doing a quick Hail Mary here. It's kind of a, yeah, here we go. This is exactly how I feel about this plea.
Now, our operation is small, but there's a lot of potential for aggressive expansion. So which of you fine gentlemen would like to join our team? Oh, there's only...
And so right here on the left, we have all of the corporate executives and back here kind of center middle, maybe we've got the media. And then over here on the right, we've got all the actors and writers. And we, the audience, we're the one speaking in this scene.
One spot open right now, so we're going to have tryouts. Make it fast.
That's exactly what. One more time.
Now, our operation is small, but there's a lot of potential for aggressive expansion. So which of you fine gentlemen would...
That's right. There's a lot of potential for new stories and new ways to consume media. To you, the writers, actors, executives, and media. And this is what we have to say to you.
Like to join our team? Oh, there's only one spot open right now, so we're going to have tryouts. Make it fast.
Love it. Absolutely love it. That's how I feel. keep whining. Keep whining. I'm just here for the show. Yeah. You wipe your ass with the audience until you need us. And now you want us to side with you. Well, screw you. Who is the author of this? I want to give proper attribution here. Yes, this was The Hill. Louis Braham. Maybe Brahm. By Louis Brahm of The Hill. Would I be willing to sponsor a poor and impoverished actor or writer by canceling my Netflix? Well, I might be willing to cancel my Netflix to spite Netflix and the actors and writers that created all the woke garbage on it. But to answer your question, no, screw you. Screw you. Who cares? They're getting what they deserve. If Hollywood never makes another film again, the world will be a better place. We will figure it out. We'll figure it out. We didn't have Hollywood when the Mona Lisa was painted. We didn't have Hollywood when the Sistine Chapel was created. We didn't have Hollywood when the Greek tragedy was pioneered. We don't need Hollywood. So that is my answer. And but aren't you worried about AI coming for you? Yes. How about censorship? How about our rights being taken away? How about people being forced into their homes and masked up, vaccinated against their will, their livelihoods threatened for weeks? Yeah, I'm very concerned about it. You're a part of the problem. So no, I won't be taking advice from the people that have created this hell that they now live in. As far as I'm concerned, it's probably the closest thing to justice that currently exists in the modern world. So, yes, keep writing your garbage. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, Mr. Louis Brahm of The Hill. It's like I saw Rachel Zegler asking for kindness. This. Here's the thing. I actually don't disagree. I don't disagree. I think people should be kind. Yeah, is she an insufferable brat? She absolutely is. Do I wish her ill? No, I don't. And I don't think she deserves a bunch of hate on Twitter. I don't think she deserves death threats or anything like that. That's horrible. That shouldn't happen to anyone. But that is my personal ethics. That is my moral belief. That is how I conduct myself and how I believe people should conduct themselves. But what she is doing is manipulative. It's disingenuous and it's passive aggressive. Now that, she feels entitled to rewrite history, to shit on a fable that was written a century before she was born, a story that was created at great financial risk to Walt Disney, that revolutionized filmmaking, that was popular and beloved in its time. She feels entitled to shit on all of that. She feels entitled to be unkind to anyone who believes the original Snow White fairy tale was just fine as it was not problematic, and and she thinks it's not being unkind to shit on all that. Well, she's entitled to her opinion. She's also entitled to experience how people feel about that opinion. So to act malicious, vengeful, entitled, selfish, greedy, to act in all of those unkind ways and then demand kindness as though no one in the world has ever been kinder and more generous. It is fine. I think I am well able to say, while I bear her no ill will, and while I think it is true that we should all be kind to each other, that is disingenuous in the extreme, and that is bullshit. I think a good first step, if you want kindness, Ms. Ziegler, is to start treating other people kindly. And, she had an opportunity because Gina Carano had this great tweet. Can I find that? I don't want to delay the stream digging for it. See, this is the advantage of having guest hosts. I hope someday if I have a guest host, I can look for stuff. But anyway, she had a great tweet where she basically just tweeted a meme of a woman sitting at a computer going, boop, and it was kind of her way of saying yeah, how did you treat me when I was being fired? And Ziegler had tweeted at her, she basically just piling on about use the right trans pronouns, use the right pronouns. So in other words, not in any way saying, hey guys, we disagree with this opinion, but she has a right to her opinion. She doesn't deserve to be fired. No, it's not right. And she should be kinder. There was a way to go about that would have actually been kind or to have a conversation. And so when she got that tweet from Gina Carano, she blocked her. She blocked her instead of taking the opportunity to say, you know what? You're right. I was unkind to you. And you were treated unkindly, and maybe we should all be kinder to each other. So she doesn't mean it. She doesn't care. She's selfish and she's greedy. And why do I bring this up? Is it because of Rachel? Not because I don't care about Rachel Ziegler. Spoiled, entitled actors are if you haven't noticed, a dime a dozen. They're ubiquitous in society. So that's nothing new. I think what I'm identifying here is that how did we get here? How did we get here culturally into a situation in which these crazy political whack jobs are running everything? They are running our entire life at this point. Every level of culture is dominated with their toxic insanity. How did we get here? Well, because whenever they were on the ropes, and whenever they were upset about something, they would start saying things like, be kind, be tolerant, be inclusive. And the minute they had 1 ounce of power, 1 ounce of authority over another individual, they pressed that advantage with as much cruelty, malice, and hatred as they possibly could. And so I have no time and no patience for these pathetic, fake entreaties to kindness. How about you extend an olive branch to someone you've hurt? And then I want to hear. Then I want to hear about how we should treat kinder. You don't get to participate in the mob. You don't get to pick up your pitchfork and your torch and skewer people and cheer while the witches are burned at the stake. And then when you are accused of being a witch, now you have to be, now we have to be kind and we have to have a sense of justice and fairness. Well, while I agree with that principle, your fake disingenuous pleas are pathetic and unbecoming. And this is not me speaking to Zegler anymore. This is me speaking to all, Angel Manuel Soto and director of Dial of Destiny. All of these, Harrison Ford with his hostage video. Oh, I'm really grateful that you came out to here. I'm here in my kitchen, and I was told to say this. I really love playing the character of Indiana Jones, the Man in the Hat. And it's a good movie. Phoebe Waller-Forehead. Thank you. Can I go back to watching TV now? I'm sorry. I don't care. But we don't care about your whining anymore. So ask for kindness when it's as convenient as possible for you. And we'll see how you do. We'll see how you do. What else do we have in the stack of stuff? Well, I have seen a really fantastic show that I wanted to talk about. Star Fury's Star Fury. Oh my God. I have to read Star Fury's chats very carefully. Star Fury said, I'm just kidding. Star Fury says, I'd rather sponsor the guy. Am I going to read this? I'd rather sponsor a douse of syphilis for myself than give actors or writers a dime. Oh man. He says, night, everyone. I'm up early in the morning, so have a great one. You wonderful bunch of Starnuts. Well, a salute to you, Star Fury, as stellar a Starnaut as I have ever known. It's been an honor serving with you on this voyage. So, and Fu Man Blue, you definitely going to want to stick around for this one because I have Stargate news for you. So I saw Twisted Metal, okay? And this show, as I mentioned in the beginning, I've never played the games. I'm not a big racing game guy. I like fighting games, first-person shooters. I like role-playing games. I'm just not, I'm not going to go out of my way to play a racing game. They're fun in an arcade. Cruisin' World. Anyone remember Cruisin' World? That one will eat your quarters in the worst way. So I hear about this. Now, the other problem is that I'm quite tired of dystopia. I'm tired of post-apocalyptic wasteland stories. I just think that they're so played out, they're so cliche that it takes a rare one to get my attention. And so when I heard about Twisted Metal, I had literally zero interest. I had just zero interest. Honestly, I'm looking for more of kind of some of the rare gifts that we've gotten, like House of the Dragon was a rare surprise. We also had Star Trek Picard Season 3, which was just a little taste of what Star Trek used to be, which was wonderful. And, I'm looking for more of that kind of stuff. And so I wasn't really interested. And frankly, I would like a superhero story that isn't garbage. I really would. I would like to see a superhero film and enjoy it. That would be nice. That's probably not going to happen for a very long time. The closest I can get to a good superhero story these days is Mission Impossible or John Wick. Those are the closest I can get to a good superhero story in the classics, Spider-Man, Batman kind of sense. So I just wasn't very interested in a show that was based on a racing game and I should say it's like racing combat, like you drive cars and fight each other. So it's it might actually be fun. I should probably give it a try. Anyway, an old PlayStation game in a post-apocalyptic world, and you have souped up, armed to the teeth cars, and you race each other and fight each other. Not really that interested in watching a show about it. However, I kept hearing, YouTubers I follow, like on Geeks and Gamers and so forth, talking about it. And they're like, well, it's a pretty good show. And I thought, I could kill an hour watching a show. It actually turns out the episodes are only half an hour on Peacock. And I watched the first 2 episodes and I thought, I'll go through the first 2 episodes. If it grabs me, I'll keep going. I've got to tell you, I turned on Twisted Metal. I am into this within 5 minutes. And I binged about 3 episodes. And I've got to tell you, it is fantastic. This show is fantastic. And here's the thing, too. This is the other, there are three things I did not like about it when I first heard about it. Number one, based on a racing video game. Number two, post-apocalyptic. I'm tired of that. And then number three, tongue-in-cheek sort of parody post-apocalyptic. Definitely not interested in that. Like, I really, I get tired of like, MCU humor has ruined shows that are sort of parodies that are like not taking it too seriously. It's ruined it for me because that's every Marvel movie now. That's every DC movie now. And it's just, frankly, it's getting into all the other movies. It's Indiana Jones. It's all of them. They're all like this now. So why do I want to watch a show that's going out of its way to not take itself seriously? However, it turns out that Twisted Metal is actually very well executed. It as far as post-apocalyptic stories go, no, it doesn't take itself too seriously. But here's what I would say. Anthony Mackie, who plays the main character, and he is excellent in this show. He is fantastic. He plays John Doe. John Doe is the name of the character. He's what's called a milkman. So it's a post-apocalyptic world it's a technological apocalypse. So essentially something like an EMP or something knocked out all of our technology and society fell apart. And now there's pockets of civilization that are in walled off cities. And in between the cities, the way that goods and services get around and people or outlying settlements get anything is through the service of what they call milkmen, which is just a colloquial term for a driver who braves the wasteland to base. They're a courier. They're a courier that drive goods and services across the land and they get paid for it. Anthony Mackie's character of John Doe, and he's named John Doe because he literally doesn't know his given name. He grew up kind of not remembering his family. So he's kind of an orphan. And he's just grown up living in this wasteland. So he just goes by the name John Doe because he doesn't know anything else. His character he's like a joke a minute, but they're actually hilarious. Like he's got this kind of happy-go-lucky, like I can handle the apocalypse kind of attitude. He's a little bit like, I would compare him to kind of Jack Sparrow. He's got that quality Jack Sparrow had, which is half of the time he is an idiot bumbling from misadventure to misadventure. The other half of the time, he is really damn good at what he does. He executes clever strategies. Sometimes they go sideways. Often they go sideways, but he's good enough on his feet that he can kind of work his way out of it. And so you're never quite sure exactly how competent he is, but there's just enough competence in what he does that the way he kind of laughs in the face of the people he's facing actually is quite endearing, and it doesn't undermine the stakes of the show at all. So he's very funny. He's got a lot of, I would say all the characters have kind of an eccentricity about them. So Thomas Hayden Church plays a marvelous character called Agent Stone. So he is essentially a kind of mall cop who has made himself the real cop of the apocalypse. And he patrols the highway in like typical, mirrored sunglasses and a nice, official state trooper kind of uniform. But he's just a murderous SOB. He finds criminals and shoots them for like minor parking ticket crimes. But he's devastatingly menacing. He's very effective. You have a psycho killer clown who is every bit as good as like a Twisty the Clown from like American Horror Story, voiced by Will Arnett. He's just absolutely whacked out insane, but he's also hilarious, but he's also menacing. Like he is menacing. So this is what I think makes it work. Okay. Yes, it's tongue in cheek. It kind of makes fun of the apocalypse. However, the story is told from the POV of Anthony Mackie's character, John Doe. John Doe is what I would consider an unreliable narrator. He's basically the person who's telling you what happened and how the world got this way, how the world works, but he himself doesn't take life very seriously. So you can basically tell that, you can't really trust his version of events. And I think that helps it a lot because you get the feeling that the reason that he's like this, the reason he doesn't take this wasteland seriously is because it's so insane. He lives in such an insane world. It's kind of just naturally how he's grown up. It's like naturally how he's grown up to process the world is, hey, people are getting, shot and killed for minor things. Hey, at least I didn't get killed. That's a good way. That's how you have a positive attitude in the apocalypse. Basically, so the way that you have a positive attitude in the apocalypse is not by putting your chips on like the good in people or hope for the future. The way you have a positive attitude in the apocalypse is don't take things too seriously, man. And so that's kind of what comes across on the screen. So I guess what I'm saying is, the apocalypse in this story is pretty serious. Like the setting is pretty serious and the stakes are pretty high, but the characters have all sort of adapted mentally to kind of like be very unaware of how insane they are. It works. It really does work. He's an unreliable narrator. So the fact that he's kind of and he's consistent. That's the other thing. Mahler is so good at diagnosing what's wrong with like Marvel Cinematic humor. And one of the things that I think he hits upon is that it's not the fact that it's humor as much as it's the fact that the characters are not acting consistent with their character. The film is not acting consistent with the stakes of the situation, the crisis at hand. And what I like about Twisted Metal is that John Doe is consistent as a character. He doesn't take life too seriously. From second one that you hear his voice on screen, that's just his personality. And so when he's in a terrifying situation, and he is terrified, the fact that he's reacting in a kind of like, kind of Spider-Man joking in the face of death kind of way really works for his character because it's consistent with his character. Thomas Hayden Church's character of Agent Stone, the cop, he works really well because he's also consistent with the fact that he takes everything seriously. The most minor legal offense is very serious business to him. So it actually it's hilarious when he and John Doe are interacting. They actually turn out to be really good foils for each other. The scene where Sweet Tooth shows up is incredible. The fight between John Doe and Sweet Tooth is unbelievable. It is so funny, but also terrifying. Sweet Tooth is terrifying. He is basically a psycho clown in like, bondage gear. And he's got a machete and he laughs very, very happily as he's butchering people. But here's the other thing. There's actually backstory that justifies why each of these characters are the way they are. And they do some flashbacks that actually start to show how the world fell. And it's a little bit not quite as silly, the explanation as John Doe presents it, which I think reinforces my theory that he's an unreliable narrator. So the fact that you have consistent characters, an unreliable narrator, and the world has actual stakes. And when they're in danger, they are in danger. So I love it. It's a great show. And I have to admit, post-apocalyptic, it's hard to make the old new again. I have to say, this take on the post-apocalypse, it's kind of like a more lighthearted, it's definitely, I'd say it's more like a lighthearted Mad Max. It is very similar to the original kind of Mad Max idea, presentation of a fallen world, except it's obviously not quite as serious. Doesn't take itself quite as seriously as Mad Max, but I would say that the violence and the danger in this world is every bit as serious as what you would encounter in Mad Max. So it's fantastic. And as video game adaptations go, it's hard to think of a better one. So the captain recommends Twisted Metal on Peacock. And I would even say, I'm only 3 episodes in, so I cannot give the full season a rating. But for the first 3 episodes, I would say, so far, I'm going to give this one 8 out of 10 bars on the epaulets. I'm going to say it's a solid 8 out of 10. I would say that if the apocalyptic world itself were a little more intriguing, I would probably raise that score. But that's the minor critique. I would say 8 out of 10. That's high praise, trust me. So Twisted Metal on Peacock. And, the other thing that's great about it, too, is, we've seen all these shows like Secret Invasion and She-Hulk. and what's the other one? Andor. Just a lot of these new shows on streaming that are terribly paced, and then films that are 2 hours and 47 minutes, and they have no business being that long. It's nice to watch a show that's 30 minutes. It's a brisk 30 minutes, and it tells a lot of story in that 30 minutes. I'm actually quite impressed by how complete of a story they're able to tell in each episode in just 30 minutes. It's really tight TV screenwriting. So I'm loving Twisted Metal. It's a lot of fun. How do they manage to make the apocalypse so fun? I don't know, but they pulled it off with this. So there we go. And I want to pull up the IMDb we're going to talk about something else, my dear sailors of Star Nuts, that your captain is very excited to report to you. Fu Man Blue, do you know what's coming up next? Here we go. I just got to get the right background. You know it. You know it. You love it. Stargate SG-1. Lest we forget, my dear sailors of Starnuts, there are still good things in the world. There are great things in the world. And there are 10 seasons of Stargate SG-1. And I am pleased to report I can now officially pronounce Stargate SG-1 is officially bingeable. I binged 4 episodes. Starting with the episode. Which episode was? Yeah, There But for the Grace of God. So this was, I want to say, the third to last episode. Or no. Yes. Third to last episode of Stargate SG-1. There But for the Grace of God. Now, this basically starts a 4-episode arc that I thought was really good. So it begins with they arrive on a planet. I'm gonna get rid of that tab because I don't want any hindrance to the stream. Okay. So it begins with they go to a planet where there is a mirror, a strange alien device. It's a kind of mirror, and when Daniel touches it, it basically moves him into a parallel reality. Now, being a science fiction aficionado, as I am, as all of you are, it's not too hard for us to figure out where this is going. It's like, okay, yeah, there's subtle differences. I immediately knew, based on the cold open, he's stuck in an alternate reality. It's kind of cool, though, because it's like instead of General Hammond being in charge, General Hammond is a colonel, and Jack O'Neill is the general. And basically, Daniel is trying to explain. It was actually kind of cool because Captain Carter's not a captain. She's not in the military. She's actually instead, what was it her role was? She's basically a scientist. She had like a civilian position, basically. She's like a civilian advisor. And then instead of Daniel being the lead scientist on the project, it's actually, and I just closed the IMDb. Damn it. I should not have done that because I'm not going to remember. She's basically the old lady that that was his mentor. She is like in charge of the project. What was her name? Dr. Catherine Langford. That's right, Dr. Catherine Langford. So Langford, the Daniel's mentor, she is actually in charge of the science on the Stargate project. And Daniel is in a pickle. Because he's got to explain why he's there, where he came from. He figures out he's in an alternate reality, and that's all fine. But then it gets interesting. Because then, all through the episode, you're hearing, oh, we're in a situation here. We're in a situation. You figure, oh, sure, they're always in a situation. Well, then it turns out the Goa'uld are invading Earth, and it is absolutely brutal. Their technology is absolutely impervious to any of our weapons, and they are simply nuking city after city after city. And it's introduced by a very artfully done line where they say, sir, we've just lost Philadelphia and New York or something like that. And they show a map, and it's basically they are evacuating MVPs to another planet through the Stargate, like civilization is falling. And Daniel fails. He fails to save this civilization, but he's able to convince the Stargate team, he's able to convince them that he is from an alternate reality where this is also going to happen, and he still has a chance to stop it. However, they're not letting him go through the Stargate. So basically, the stakes just go through the roof. And what I really like about this episode is the fact that finally I have a sense of like what the Goa'uld could really do. I have a sense of like, because let's face it, you know, and look, it's a common trope. It's in Star Wars too. But this idea that like in the like far futuristic technology, right, that the fighter jet is going to fly low and shoot at you with like laser beams. Like, let's face it, at our level of technology right now, if they want to drone strike you, you will never see the aircraft ever. You won't even hear the missile before you're dead. Like, you're dead. Like, that's just how it's going to be. And so it's hard for me sometimes to suspend disbelief when I'm watching super advanced aliens kind of like clumsily shoot at, you know, civilian targets fleeing on foot and they can't hit them. I mean, effectively what that is, that's effectively World War II technology. That's effectively what you would like World War II strafing from aircraft. And they were pretty accurate, actually. You could definitely hit a target on the ground with those World War II planes. In fact, Erwin Rommel got strafed and nearly killed. He was badly wounded when he was in his car and an Allied plane strafed his vehicle. So just say it, okay? So it was nice to see that when the Goa'uld arrive, their ships are undefeatable. Like their technology is super advanced. They have shields that protect them from all weaponry. There's nothing you can do. They're just nuking every city. And I got to say, you know, it's kind of interesting because, you know, Blue Beetle, every single villain in this, eventually, except for Susan Sarandon, because she's the white woman, they eventually realize, oh, wait, I forgot. I'm Latino. I can't hurt Latino people. I'm sorry, Latinx. I'm Latinx. I can't hurt Latinx people. I must save Jaime for La Raza. And they band together and like, you know, murderous psychopathic monster. You know what? I forgot. I was orphaned by American planes when I was a kid, and I'm not really evil at all. And in fact, I'm on your side now. And it's like, we live in a world where all the villains defeat themselves now. And like, look, I like the idea that people are redeemable. I'm fine with like Peter Parker talking Doc Ock into being a good scientist again, and he does the right thing in the end. That's okay sometimes. And I'm fine with, and like Star Trek, I'm fine with, you know, occasionally the captain is able to get through to the enemy and convince them to switch sides. You know, I'm okay with some of that. And it in its proper place, when it is properly earned in a story, it can be really good. However, Hollywood has apparently decided that there's no such thing as true evil anymore. Yeah, I wonder why that is. I wonder why they're so sensitive about that. Anyway, they've decided now that there's no such thing as a pure psychopathic monster you just have to defeat. Unless it's a MAGA supporter. Unless it is a law-abiding Trump voter or Brexit voter. Well, then they should be put to death. But no, if it's like a psychopathic murdering son of a bitch, like Wanda, you know, Wanda in Doctor Strange, mom. Well, you know, you got to understand her backstory before you judge her too harshly. So I kind of like seeing the Goa'uld just be ruthless sons of bitches. Like they're ruthless. I used to have this joke with a friend of mine when I was a kid, you know, because we would play video games like Mega Man, you know, like yeah, like Mega Man's a good example. Sigma's the villain in Mega Man, right? He just is a monster. He's just a monster. Like all he wants to do is just wipe out everything. He wants to kill Mega Man. He wants to rule all the humans. And I used to just jokingly say to my friend, I'm like, why is Sigma such a jerk? Like, why is he such a dick all the time? Like, what? I just want to know. Like, why is he such a dick? I don't know. He just is. Like, so there's something. I have that feeling with the Goa'uld. It's like, why are they such dicks? They just are, man. They're just like, I'm going to wipe you out. I don't give a shit. Look, it's a good reminder to me as a writer. Like, don't forget, it's fine to have villains with complicated and complex moralities and motives. It's fine to have story arcs about, being able to put aside our differences and work together, learn that we're not really enemies after all. That's all fine and it has its place. On the other hand, there is such a thing as a ruthless invader that looks at you as an insect and all they care about is your annihilation. And there is only one response to them, which is they must be stopped with extreme prejudice. And I like that. I like that about the Goa'uld. I like that they are so freaking ruthless. I like that they really do think of themselves as gods. And so they feel entitled. They feel entitled to just enslave or massacre anyone for any reason, and frankly, each other, because it's also established in this run of episodes that the Goa'uld have a kind of, they have a dog-eat-dog culture. It's like, Apophis, the villain of the first season, he fully expects that his son, who he loves very dearly, may also need to be taken out because his son may try to take him out. And look, that's just how it goes. He's a chip off the old block. And like any good son, if he senses weakness in me, it is his obligation to try and take me out. And if he does try to take me out, it is my obligation as a good father to murder him in his sleep. And look, I think that's just fine for the Goa'uld. I'm good with that, man. They're just ruthless, man. They're just going to wipe us out. So that's the alternate dimension episode. And that set up a freaking great hook for the next episode. Because now I'm interested. Now, I'm like, okay, how is Daniel going to prevent this from happening? And then, so the next episode I thought was actually pretty intriguing, which is a senator comes by to evaluate whether the Stargate program should be shut down or not. And it's actually the same actor who played Edward Jellicoe in Star Trek The Next Generation when Captain Picard was temporarily replaced. He plays the senator. He plays a really good senator. I miss the days when you couldn't tell what the politics were of the, he's just a senator. We don't know what party he comes from. Frankly, he could easily be from either party. The way he talks, he strikes me as, he could be Mitt Romney or he could be John Kerry. He could literally be either one, and it would make perfect sense. And anyway, so he's there, and now this is kind of interesting to me because I'm thinking to myself, we have this Stargate. It is kept in secret. And one of the things that kind of bothered me when I first looked at this series was the idea of like, how could you keep something like this secret? How could you be going through the gate and finding all this technology? Like it would have to get out. Like it's very difficult to keep things under wraps unless, it's just difficult. The more people know, the higher the risk of a leak, etc. And so my suspension of disbelief, I think, would be challenged by we literally are exploring the whole galaxy. At some point, this is going to change the world. Like this is going to have to change the world. It was a shitty sequel, but the Independence Day sequel at least addressed that issue of like, oh, we were invaded by aliens. We defeated them. 20 years later, we have all this technology that it's like an alternate history where now we have all this alien technology because we salvaged it. I thought that was a pretty smart angle because it's like, look, that would change the world. I also kind of liked how Marvel Phase 1 through 3 did that with Loki. And, we've been invaded. Thor arrived on the planet, proving aliens exist. Like, that's a big deal. I think that was one of the strengths of the Snyderverse, actually, is that Snyder also kind of dealt with that. It's like, oh, Superman has arrived on the planet. That's a big deal. We've just discovered, aliens are real. So my issue with Stargate was, how long can you maintain the status quo of our world just being the way it is while we have access to hundreds and thousands of worlds and all kinds of alien technology? We're literally fighting an interstellar war on the sly. Well, what I like about this episode with the senator is they start to address that. The president knows he can't keep this quiet forever. The Senate has figured out all this money is just being drained into a secret program with like very little explanation, and they're concerned about it. Oh, gee, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be, he's like, oh, don't worry, it's going to Ukraine. You don't need to worry about, oh, okay, let's go to Ukraine. Oh, then who cares what we're spending it on? That's how it would really go. Like, no, that's all you'd have to do. Just like, where's all this money going? Oh, it's going to diversity, equity, and inclusion training. Oh, for our armed forces. $9 billion a year? That's a steal. Trust us. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't need to know what it's for then. That's but in the fictional world that is Stargate SG-1, elected officials actually, they care a little bit about where all the money is going. So the president is in a pickle. Does the president reveal to the elected representatives of the people, which would therefore reveal it to the people ultimately, or at least a committee in the Senate, does he reveal the existence of the Stargate program, or does he continue to keep it under wraps? And he kind of doesn't like either of those options. So he kind of comes by a third option, which is, well, I will get the senator that is sort of the staunchest critic, and I will give him full clearance to see the Stargate program. And if he decides he can sign off on it, that, I can keep the secrecy and I will have at least placated effectively the other side. And I thought, well, that's pretty reasonable. It's funny to watch a show like this. I would say 20, 25 years ago, I was very much more a kind of, I would say I fit the definition of a neocon. I definitely was very much, I bought into a lot of things I don't buy into now, which is the idea of, how can I explain this? I think the initial objective in the Afghanistan war was justified because it was a response to a military attack on, speaking of 9/11, of course, it was a response to a military attack, and the invasion to root out the attackers and stop them was a reasonable and justified use of force. And I still agree with that. But I think I was much more convinced that, I look back on it now and I think how much of just that decade that we spent in those foreign countries was just so that we could keep, it's like that line in Dredd where he's like, Mega City 1 is a meat grinder. People go in one end, meat comes out the other. All we do is crank the handle. And I just think how much of that was just us cranking the handle for the military industrial complex and just funding all these companies. And then I used to think, the government needs its secrets. CIA needs its secrets. It's like I feel we have been very wrong about all of this in our societies. I think that we went, I think World War II, I know, quite the tangent for your captain. Just stick with me on this. Indulge me. I think in World War II, we created a monster. We were fighting a monster and we created a monster to defeat that monster. And what that was is we industrialized war. We unified every level of society for the purposes of war in World War II. We turned it into a manufacturing business, aka the military industrial complex. We created the seeds of what would later become, the secrecy and surveillance state. And now we're living with the consequences of that. And so I watch a show like SG-1, which I think has a very rose-colored view of government secrecy. The military in the show is portrayed in a way of they are very much on the side of the people. They're very much serving the cause of democracy and justice in the world. And I'm fine with that. I do believe that our militaries largely serve that goal. But I think secrets and lies have a cost, and that is no different for a civilization. And I think that, can the people be told everything going? Well, of course not, because if we revealed all of our strategic advantages, we'd be revealing it to the enemy. But that cannot be allowed to justify the absolute culture that we have of keeping everything secret. And so why do I bring this up? I bring this up because I believe, let's imagine for the moment that the Stargate were real. I mean, real. And this were really happening. It would be an absolute crime for the government to hide this from civilization. They would. Believe me, they would. It would be a crime. A crime against democracy a crime against the consent of the governed, it would be Orwellian in the extreme to hide the existence of this Stargate from civilization and to deny the people the opportunity to have their voice heard on what we should do with it, how we should handle this. Like human civilization, they would have a duty. Any democratically elected military or government, I believe, would have the moral duty to inform its people of the existence of this gate. They would have to, and they would not. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm not like naive about this. They wouldn't. That's the problem. That's exactly the problem. And I think I look at this show and I think we have gotten way too comfortable in Western civilization with being lied to. We have gotten way too comfortable with everything. The first instinct of our governments is to hide things from us and lie to us all the time. We are comfortable with it. And this show, I think, is a bit dated in that way because it reflects that mentality, which I used to agree with. That's my point. I used to, like, in its day, I would have seen nothing at all wrong with this. I would have watched Stargate and I would have been totally fine with it. I probably wouldn't have liked the fact they're keeping it secret still. But I would have been sympathetic to it, is I guess what I'm saying. I watch it now and I feel like, now you might say, but Captain, if you couldn't have MI6 and the CIA and the FBI, if you couldn't have them keeping all these things classified, then how would we keep secrets from our enemies? How would we be strategically effective in the world? We're in a dangerous world. And you're right. Some secrecy would always be required, but there has to be a better way. There simply has to be a better way. And I think we should reorganize our societies so that we tilt toward openness. And secrecy is something that is reserved for the rare circumstances where it is required. I think to the extent the public should be informed, the public should be informed. And we as citizens should demand this, because if we don't, well, we haven't. And because we haven't, do we actually have a democracy? I mean, I really think about it. Do we actually? How could you have a democracy when you don't even know what your own government is doing all the time? It basically means we're not running it. So it's just running itself. So it's a good sign that a show like this makes me think about all these things. So returning to the episode at hand, the reason I bring that up is because I quite enjoyed exploring the idea of, like, how would the Senate deal with this? How would the president deal with this? And what I did like about it was the implication that this cannot stay secret forever. And we're coming to a point where we're going to have to make a decision about how much the public and their elected representatives need to know about the Stargate. Some of this, I think, is just the fact that in order for the show to happen, it has to be a secret because it's sort of part of the status quo of the format of the show. But I do appreciate that the show is really earning the idea of the Stargate being a secret. There's different factions of government that disagree on it. And so all of that is really good for setting the table for the final 2 episodes in this 4-episode run, which would be the final episode of season 1 and the first episode of season 2, which is in the Serpent's Lair. And then what was the next one? It was in the Serpent's Lair. Oh, no, within the Serpent's Grasp. That was the final episode of season 1. And then the conclusion of that story, the Serpent's Lair. And so basically what happened is there is an invasion fleet. Well, it's really 2 ships are on the way to attack Earth. And because Daniel has foreknowledge of it, he basically, they Stargate over to the location where the attack's going to be launched from. Turns out they wound up on a ship. There's a starship. Starships have officially arrived in Stargate, which I'm very happy about. And they basically spend the whole 2 episodes in a battle of attrition trying to stop these ships from getting to their destination. There's a great story arc about, the boy that Daniel saved, which was Skara, who has now become a Goa'uld. He's now carrying the Goa'uld that is Ra's son. There is some great drama here with Jack O'Neill trying to kind of rescue Skara from the grip of the Goa'uld, and that all worked. That was pretty good. And I liked, you know what I liked about some of this? They actually addressed like science fiction issues, like distance. Like, imagine that. You know, I like that they asked Captain Carter, they're like, how soon will we get to Earth? And she's like, well, how fast can the ship travel? And Teal'c says it travels about 10 light years. What was it? 10 times the speed of light. And Captain Carter says, that means we should get to Earth in about a year. And of course, I'm thinking, okay, so then that means they're about 10 light years away. I enjoy that. I enjoy being able to, okay, yeah, they're launching an attack from 10 light years away. That makes sense. They wind up getting there much faster, of course. So it turns out they're traveling much faster than that. And they can't, this was, I thought, a particularly cool little technical detail that they couldn't get back through the Stargate. Why not? Because they're in motion and the coordinates no longer work. And there's a great little payoff to that too in the second episode when Daniel has to escape the ship before it blows up, and they're now at Earth. And so how does he escape when the Stargate is no longer at its point of origin? So he can't dial home. He can't go back to the home Stargate. So what does he do? Well, what he does is he uses the location of Earth, which is where the ship now is, as a reference point to Stargate to another site, and then Stargate back to Earth. And that's how he gets back. And I thought, damn, that is clever. I love stuff like that. I love good science fiction technical storytelling. Like they actually have, you know, kind of real distances, like how far they are. And I'd like to, you know, mention Captain Carter here for a second. I love her character. I would have thought nothing of this 20 years ago. I would have thought nothing of this 30 years ago when I was a kid watching science fiction. I didn't think about these things. When I was a kid, I didn't think about, is this a strong female woman, or is this a girl boss, or does this succeed or fail on the Bechdel test? I didn't care. None of that even entered my mind. All I knew was, oh, she's pretty. Oh, she's cool. Oh, she's good at this. He's good at that. Like, you know, you know what? In other words, I just experienced women in storytelling as just other characters. I know, it's freaking weird. I just experienced women as just characters and individuals. I didn't think about, you know, obviously there was the babe factor. That was, you know, part of it. And it's like, it's just a condition of, you know. And so I never thought of it that way. But as I'm looking back at it, you know, in the fullness of time and kind of just what we're dealing with in the culture war, it's like, you know, what I appreciate about her character is there was one scene in the entire season 1, and it was the very first episode, the first scene she arrives, she makes mention of her gender. And it's honestly, it's like one comment, and it was actually because she misinterpreted what Jack O'Neill was saying as an objection to her being a woman in the military, or basically it was him being distrustful of her because she was a woman. And she actually misinterpreted that, because Jack says, no, I don't trust you because I don't trust scientists. You know, I don't, you know, in other words, he doesn't like the eggheads. And I thought, and that was it. That was the last time we ever deal with Captain Carter being a woman in the military. It isn't brought up again. She just is good at her job. She just is a competent scientist. She has her personality. You know, there's kind of some fun little romantic tension, and very rarely between her and Jack O'Neill. And it's done, I think, really well. And what I like about it is I'm able to just experience her as a character, and a competent character who has earned her place on this team without having to be lectured to about how hard she had it as a girl growing up, and how important it was for her to have female mentors, and how hard it is to be a woman in the military. And that's not even to say you couldn't have it come up as part of like the story. Like, you know, if there happens to be just a kind of particularly chauvinistic colonel who walks in and she's got to deal with it, and you just see her dealing with it, you know, you can kind of read into the scene that she's used to this. Like, she kind of rolls her eyes and she's like, yes, as a matter of fact, General, I was trained at such and such, you know, base or whatever. It's like, in other words, she would just deal with it, as opposed to the plot and the script having to literally talk at us through the screen and tell us how hard life is because she's a whammy. And I love it that's not an issue with her. It just doesn't even come up. It's like, and by the way, it doesn't come up either, like Teal'c, for example. Teal'c is not constantly whining about how bigoted human, oh, you don't trust me because I'm an alien, and that's so unfair. It's like, no, sometimes people don't trust him, and the plot and him just deal with it. People have problems, they just deal with them. It has the effect of making her, a character you actually respect and that you actually like because she's not whining all the time. Whiny characters are annoying. Unless it's part of their character to be a whiner, I don't advise it. If you're trying to write a likable character, regardless of their gender. So anyway, and the fact that I make that point, it's not to say that that's the only interesting thing about her character. Because that's exactly my point, is that's not what's interesting about her character. What's interesting about her character is that she's likable. She fills the archetypal role of the scientist who figures things out. She's kind of more of like the physical scientist, whereas Daniel is more of he's the anthropologist. He kind of understands the languages and the cultures. I like that Carter she's more the microscope scientist. She's more like figuring out how the nanites work and stuff like that. I like how Jack O'Neill, he's just a military man. He thinks in simple terms. He's the leader. He likes to make wisecracks. I like that. It's pretty amazing what you can do with just good character work and not making a big deal of it. And this also reminds me, I just recently watched Stranger Things 4 again. I watched the 4th season of Stranger Things. I've only seen it the once, and so this is my second watch through. And I've got to tell you, what an absolute delightful season that was. I mean, they did have its problems. That there are some kind of annoying tendencies that the Duffer Brothers have that I've never liked since the beginning of the first season. But those are minor. In the overall picture, it's like they tell a really good emotional story with great science fiction concepts, a really good kind of like, a kind of like gumshoe mystery. These kind of plucky kids solving mysteries. It's got an almost Scooby-Doo dynamic to it that's really brilliant. And one of the things I noticed is that Stranger Things has particularly season 4, has a very diverse cast. Like very diverse. There's like pretty much equal men and women in the character roles, and they have a way of telling the story in which they pair off the characters in interesting ways. Sometimes they'll pair off Steve and Nancy. Sometimes they'll pair off Robin and Nancy, and they'll talk about Steve. Sometimes they'll pair off Steve and Dustin, and they're working together. And so they kind of play with the different dynamics between the different characters. And what I noticed, and there's also, one of the villains in this season he's a general. He's a general who's trying to track down 11, and he thinks she's a threat to national security, and he wants to kill her. He straight up just wants to kill her. And he's black. Now, why do I bring that up? Because the show never does. The show takes place in the 80s, never bring it up. They never bring it up. Now, that's not to say that race is not a factor, because there are references to it, like Lucas in season 2, says, why do I have to be Winston? Oh, because I'm black, So it's like, but it's done in a way of like, this is how a kid would talk about this, right? This is actually an argument you would have as a kid, and it made a lot of sense. My point is, the characters are never drawing attention to it. They're never like, there's basically 2 characters that are gay characters. One is kind of, I'm pretty sure Will is gay. I'm pretty sure they're setting it up that Will is gay and that he loves Will, but he's afraid to say anything. But something, the show never says this character is gay. This character is LGBT. This character has had it really tough, especially because it's the 80s and America's so homophobic. None of that. It's like they just deal with it. They just deal with life. They just deal with how difficult it is to be in that situation when it's appropriate to the story. When it's not germane to the story, you don't hear about it. And so what am I saying? This is what Stargate and Stranger Things have in common in this way. It's like the characters are just the characters. It doesn't matter what their race or their gender is. Yes, are those factors in their lives at times? Yes, and that's fine. but it's not this thing we're constantly being preached to about it. And why is this good? It's good because we enjoy being with the characters. I love all these characters in Stranger Things. Yes, there's one or two that annoy me more than others, but generally I enjoy how all these characters interact with each other. 11 is she has an excellent arc in season 4. Her arc in season 4 is just dynamite. And I just love it that the show is never preaching to me about how unfair life has been to her because she's a girl. The show is it's not preaching, but the show is basically centered around how unfair life has been to her because she was a lab rat in the throes of a mad scientist, under the control of a mad scientist. That's great. She functions as a great superhero character. Will functions as a great kind of, he's kind of reminds me of the character of Bill in It, who was kind of the leader of the losers in the story of It. I actually really like I said Will. I meant Mike Wheeler. He functions as the kind of leader of the team. I like that Steve is kind of the redeemed bully who's kind of, and the characters are they're allowed to needle each other in a kind of battle of sexes way. But, this is kind of going back to like where Barbie got it wrong. It's like Steve and Nancy, and then Nancy and I'm drawing a blank. Jonathan are able to kind of needle each other in a battle of the sexes way without it appearing like either side is, in the position of being totally morally right while the other side is totally morally wrong. It's kind of a back and forth. It's a push-pull. The boys want what they want, the girls want what they want, and there's friction and tension, but sometimes it's fun and sometimes they're at each other's throats, but always it's in the spirit of they're just characters living their lives. And I like that that's in Stargate. I like that that's in Stranger Things. So we get, in the conclusion of these 4 episodes, we get a really incredible Earth invasion story by the Goa'uld. And what I think this did really well for the series is it established the stakes in no uncertain terms. If the Goa'uld ships reach Earth, it's over. It is over. And I think that is excellent. That's really well done. And I like how they did it like a kind of classic War of the Worlds alien invasion too. Like that, like just all hope is lost. So in the second episode, we're now in the prime reality where Daniel is, and the SG team are on the ship and they're trying to blow it up. Meanwhile, we're watching the ground, the Stargate base at Cheyenne Mountain, the team at Cheyenne Mountain. We're watching them with General Hammond try and stop the invasion. And there is one technical thing in here I take issue with, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But I love how it follows all the beats of like an alien invasion where we think, oh, we're going to use all of our best weapons and this is going to work. And then we have that moment where, oh my God, it didn't even make a dent. Oh my God, we're going to lose. All is lost. And the way that it followed those beats was perfect. It honestly followed the beats of War of the Worlds or Independence Day. It was like, make no mistake, this is the end of the world. That's great, because now I understand exactly how dangerous the Goa'uld are and exactly how important the SG team is and how important the Stargate is. And the technical thing I was mentioning is, so he's kind of an antagonist. He's basically the Pentagon. What is he? A colonel? Let me see if I can find. Which one was he? If I could find him, he plays the kind of dipshit that needs to that's interfering. General Hammond's not in control, and there's this other colonel from the Pentagon, and he's just causing problems because he thinks, oh yeah, we're gonna shoot him down. We sure will. Yeah, he's the tool. Fu Manchu's like, he was a tool. Yeah, he's the tool. Anyway, he says that they took some of but I do like that his plan sounds like it could work, which is kind of fun. He basically says that the military has taken some of the unique metal ore that they found that the SG team found on some of the other planets, and they've incorporated it into a thermonuclear weapon. And they've created 2 thermonuclear weapons using this alien ore, and it's up to the yield. And I thought, well, that's pretty clever. I thought that's pretty cool. And then he says the yield, and he said it's going to be, what did he say? I want to get, was it 1,000 times? No, I think he said 1,000 megatons. He said the yield will be 1,000 megatons. There's 2 of them. We will fire them at these gold ships and blow these ships up in orbit. Now, let me explain something to you, my dear sailors and starnuts. If you don't know, blast yields. So the nuclear weapon that destroyed Hiroshima was about, I think, 10 kilotons. 10 kilotons. Okay, that's 1,000 tons of TNT, right? 10 kilotons. The Minuteman, the Minuteman warheads that we have in our current arsenal. Now, these are thermonuclear weapons. These are fusion bombs, not atom bombs, fusion bombs. They are massive compared to what hit Hiroshima. What in the film Oppenheimer they refer to as the Super. These Minuteman missiles that we have are basically, they have a variable yield. We can, set them to a multitude of yields, but like their maximum yield is basically 10 megatons. 10 megatons is 10,000 kilotons. Think about, that's 10 kilotons for Hiroshima, 10,000 for one thermonuclear warhead that we currently have. That is 10 million sticks of TNT. 10 million tons, I should say, of TNT is basically what that is. We don't really honestly have a point. There's really no purpose in having a weapon that's much larger than that. The largest ever detonated on planet Earth ever was the Russian Tsar Bomba, which is 50. That was 50 megatons, and it was massive. The plane almost couldn't escape it. It was so huge, most of the blast escaped into space. So it's actually a pointless weapon. It's totally impractical because most of the blast yield is just wasted as radiation in space. It doesn't even most of the blast doesn't even hit the target. It just goes into space. That's how big it is. So 50 megatons, not practical, right? So they wouldn't actually use the weapon. They just want to be able to say they did it. Gee, I wonder why cancer rates have climbed so much in our species. Anyway, not here, they're there. Now, that 50 megaton bomb was so massive, it shattered windows in Russia 300 miles away. It shattered windows in houses. That's what a 50 megaton bomb was able to do. Okay. In the show, he says this bomb is 1,000 megatons. Like, this is, do you realize what that would be? That would basically, that would have to wipe out. That would be like an asteroid hitting the Earth. Is basically what that would have to be. That would have to be if we detonated all the bombs we have in one location, is basically what that would be. And he's going to launch it at something in low orbit? How is that not going to blow up Earth also? And then when they actually launch it at the gold, the gold shields stop it, but you just see this little poof explosion. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to, in my head canon, if it's not stated, I'm just in my head canon going to assume that the warhead did not go off, the shields destroyed the missile, and that was the explosion from the missile. That was not the explosion from the actual nuclear warhead. Because if so, that's laughable. But then they had to go and say it. They had to go and say, that our bombs detonated on the shields. And I'm like, oh, geez. Now, I could be wrong about this, but just what I heard, I'm like, okay. I probably spent way too long on that. These things fascinate. Look, I'm a nerd, okay? I am a nerd. These things fascinate me. So I had to think about it. I was like, listen, if you're going to detonate 1,000 megatons, it's got to be far up there. It's got to be well far away from Earth. Like, you can't detonate that like where, say, the International Space Station is orbiting, because that shit is going to come down. That is going to hit us. Like, that's going to... Look, 1,000 megatons, folks. Like, that's a lot. Okay. All right. Calm down, Captain. All right. So that's Fubad Blue says of the tool, he was so smug, thought that Nakata would make a difference. Yeah, no. It did not make a difference. So there you go. That is Stargate SG-1. 4 great episodes. I truly enjoyed them. I truly did. And we will now return to our regularly scheduled program. So there you go. So expect more Stargate SG-1. Also, I think I need to also do Babylon 5. I think that's the other one I'm going to start because I am enjoying good science fiction. It really does the soul good. In fact, I watched a bunch of Enterprise episodes from the Xindi season, and I was like, damn, I miss good Star Trek so much. I just miss it. And then I watched Stranger Things season 4. I'm telling you, it was like chicken soup for my soul. Because this is all like within the last week. I watched this run of episodes on SG-1. I watched Stranger Things 4. I watched Enterprise. I watched a couple episodes of Picard season 3. And suddenly it's like I feel lighter. I feel healthier. I feel like a proper captain. And and watching Stranger Things season, I didn't actually intend to binge the whole season again. I was just going to kind of pick up an episode here or there when I'm bored. I just couldn't help it. I just watched the whole damn thing. And it was like, man, that season was, and I have my issues with it. And at first, when I didn't know kind of where it was going, I was nervous. And there were things about it I didn't like. I felt they were setting up 11 to be a kind of Carrie, or, kind of a school shooter kind of character. And I did not like that. I was like, if you retcon her history so that she killed all these kids, like, I'm not going to be happy. Fortunately, no, they did not do that. And that's partly why I say it was wonderful to watch that season again. Season 4 of Stranger, and I like all 4 seasons of Stranger Things. So I frankly don't understand the hate for seasons 2 and 3 very much. I mean, in my view, the things that people criticize about season 2 and 3 of Stranger Things, frankly, are present in season 4 and are somewhat present even in season 1. Like, so let me give you an example. There is a thing that happens all the time, a trope, if you will, in Stranger Things that bugs the shit out of me. And it is people yelling in times of tense crisis. I don't feel this is how real people behave most of the time in the real world. So in other words, this is what'll happen. You'll have 4 or 5 characters in a scene, usually kids, and something really terrifying is happening, and we don't know what to do about it. And so the characters start arguing, and then the argument gets louder and louder, and then they start yelling at each other, and then they start yelling louder at each other, and then suddenly one of the characters gets an idea and wants to be heard. And then that character is not able to be heard because everyone's yelling and arguing and acting generally insane. And so it'll go something like this. While everyone's yelling, guys, shut up. And then it's like, what? And like, we can defeat the Demogorgon by this. And I'm like, oh God, there's a lot of that in season 4. And the adults are doing it, which is annoying. You'll have Joyce and, Hopper. And like, it's particularly out of character for them too to act that way, I think, because Joyce and Hopper were very level-headed in the first season. So that critique I understand, but the problem is it's just as much present in season 4. There's even a scene in which the chief of police, who's not Hopper in season 4, does this in a room full of adults. The adults are all yelling and arguing, and he says, everyone shut up, everyone calm down, everyone shut up. And I'm just like, I really despise this trope. This is not how real people act. This is not, it's just, and look, it's fine. It doesn't bother me because the rest of the show is pretty good. Also, kids yelling is annoying and obnoxious because they have high-pitched voices. It gets really grating. Stop. Yeah, so there's that. They dwell a little too much on the emotional melodrama, especially in season 4, actually, because there were so many characters and they had so many scenes. But it's just over the line. So the captain will allow it. I would say the greatest weakness of season 3 was that Hopper and Joyce kind of become a joke. But again, the problem is season 4 does this also. So why am I bringing this up? Because guys like Jeremy on Geeks and Gamers and Mahler and Gary, they all know season 2 and 3 sucked, but season 4 was a tour de force. And I'm like, honestly, if you don't like season 2 and 3, I think you should not like season 4 for exactly the same reasons. But that being said, what a brilliant piece of fiction it is, because even the things I did not like in the beginning of season 4 turned out to be setting up a payoff that was going to be so worth it in the end. Like, for example, I didn't like the fact that 11 throws a roller skate at a bully who's bullying her in school and, like, basically hits her right in the face, splits her face open. And there's this kind of Carrie element to it where they're making 11 into this kind of, how can I explain this? It's not exactly that she lashes out against the bully that I find so detestable. It's that the situation that they use, it's contrived. That's what I'm getting at. It's basically a contrived situation because in the run up to her throwing the roller skate at her bully, her tormentor in school, who's basically a mean girl. She's a mean girl that's always making fun of her. In the run up to that, Mike does not take her side. Will does not take her side. She's clearly being bullied and abused, and yet for some reason, nobody agrees with her. Nobody sympathizes with her. She's totally alone. They show her crying and people laughing at her. They show Mike not understanding her. And I'm thinking, well, that's out of character for Mike. That's out of character for Will. Both of these characters would be 1,000% on her side. They love 11. She's the superhero. Mike literally loves 11. Like she's his girlfriend. He's going to take her side against this bully. But because the plot needs 11 to be totally alone and feel isolated, Mike chooses not to support her. And that really bothered me. And it's so that she can be the kind of ticking time bomb Carrie type character. And I don't like that because I feel that's cheap. I feel that's a lazy trope, or at least I did as I'm watching it. And while I do stand by the fact that it was out of character for Mike and Will not to support her and a bit contrived, ultimately what they were setting up was that 11 is truly afraid that she actually is a monster. And a major part of her arc in season 4 is her confronting that very question. Am I a monster? And the way that they sort of episode by episode unravel it is freaking brilliant. And the way they bring Dr. Brenner back into the story as part of that is she as much a monster as he is? Like that, it's great. So in other words, setup and payoff. Something that the Latinx esteemed director Angel Manuel Soto does not understand about storytelling. Setup and payoff. So what a delight it is to just watch these characters be characters, to just be lovable and fun and likable and like, sometimes fight with each other, sometimes, love each other, hug each other, just be good friends, inspire each other to great feats of heroism, figure out what the bad guys are up to and stop it with admittedly a bit outlandish, but just plausible enough ways of solving the crisis. Like the conclusion they build to in season 4 is epic. It's very good. I do think they stretched out the beats a bit too long in some of the final moments, but when it all comes together, it was truly something to behold. And the music, I love the music choices they make in Stranger Things also. They really nail the 80s with that show. So anyway, I thought I would just share with you kind of some of my favorite things and let you know there are good things in the world. Now, this is not a political stream. Obviously, because we're in the culture war, I have no choice. I sometimes must comment. And I make no attempt to hide my political views. I just don't want to discuss politics on the show. However, there are sometimes people that are in the political world that say things that I think are worth hearing. And so I wanted to close the show with what I consider something super positive, and I'm going to share it with you. And as I have said before, my politics are, I am an Americanist. That is, my politics are the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And these days, my view is that that is found very rarely, if ever, on the left. So make of that what you will. And yes, I will be voting for the Orange Man a third time, and happily so. And nothing will dissuade me from that. Apropos of nothing, I'm only saying that for transparency. You know who I am. I know who you are. And well, that's weird. That's weirdly Orwellian. What I mean is, your host, Captain Garrett, is I say what I think, and I will always tell you what I really think about things. And on the subject of kindness, I was watching Star Trek, and I'm struck by the fact, I'm watching, Captain Archer is having to make peace with the Xindi, while he also kind of hates them for wanting to destroy the world. And, and this is found in Star Trek Voyager, in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the Next Gen, the original series, Star Trek captains who have to make peace with an enemy. And what strikes me about it is the Federation, and in the early days, the United States of America, were founded on the principle of a state of friendship, a default state of friendship with all mankind, or in the case of Star Trek, all sapient beings. And so what I enjoy about Star Trek is watching these characters have to find a way to forgive their enemies, find a way to reach common ground with them, find a way. And so, to the Rachel Zeglers of the world who are pleading for kindness, let me humbly suggest to you that if you want kindness in the world, you have got to start. You have got to be open. You've got to be open to being kind to people you don't like. And I mean this. And that goes for us as well. Yes, we must defeat the woke mind virus in the battleground of ideas. But then there must be a farewell to arms. There must be forgiveness. And this is exactly the mistake that led to the woke mind virus. They started out as liberals who then became radical leftists, who then became hateful, bigoted, totalitarian assholes. And it's destroying themselves now. And this will happen to anyone who allows their disgust or their distaste for someone they consider an enemy or an adversary. If you allow it to consume you, it will happen to you as well. It would happen to your dear captain. And so I've just been thinking about it. Being kind, what does that actually mean? Well, I think what it means is recognizing that you can have an adversary and see their humanity without condoning their behavior. And so I just saw this and I found it inspiring, and so I'm going to share it with you. One of the captain's favorite things. And so that was also a long way of saying all are welcome on the Swords and Starships channel. And I hope one day to have more guests, on the stream that disagree with me, and that just like I and Alchemy Lab, we had that conversation about Star Trek Picard, and he totally disagreed with me on a lot of my takes. It was fun. I enjoyed it. That's what we need to get back to. And so to, Rachel Zegler, if you want kindness, start giving it. Recognize that you're not entitled. You're not entitled to go around telling the rest of the world that they are evil for disagreeing with you. And this goes for the right as well, because there are definitely a lot of that on the right as well, of going around thinking people are evil just because they disagree with you. They're not. Yes, there's evil in the world, and there is definitely evil behavior. Absolutely. So anyway, I saw this, and I thought I would share it as kind of some of my closing thoughts here. Make sure I'm sharing audio. Here we go. And I have to say, I am becoming rapidly a big fan of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Soon after my dad's death, I started when I was 15 years old. I didn't like being an addict. I wanted to stop. And that's when I picked up this book called Synchronicity by Carl Jung. Jung was a disciple of Freud's, and they were kind of the co-fathers of modern psychiatry. Jung says people who believe in God get better faster, and that the recovery is more durable than people who do not. And so I just said there's God up there watching me 24 hours a day, and that life is just a series of tests. And every day is broken to about 40 different decisions. And I invested each one of those decisions with a moral dimension. For example, when the alarm goes off in the morning, do I stay in bed with my indolent thoughts, or do I jump right out of bed and get the day going? Do I hang up the towels after I get out of my shower? Or do I say, that's somebody else's job, I'm too busy for that, I'm too important for that? But 6 weeks after I got sober, my life began to get big quickly. And I was running through National Airport, and I was late for a plane. It was mission critical. I had to be on that plane. And as I was running, I was putting a stick of Dentyne in my mouth. And I pulled up the wrapper, and I was running past a trash can, and I threw the wrapper, and it made a perfect arc right swish into the middle of the trash can. But as I was running past, I saw it must have hit something in there, and it bounced back out. And I said to myself, well, that's God's fault, because I made a shot. And maybe 40, 50, 60 steps later, it just started eating at me. And I finally put the brakes on, and I went back and put the wrapper in. I did make the plane. But for me, probably the most important thing I did that day was to put that wrapper back in that trash can, because staying in that posture of surrender, even when the cash and prize are flowing into your life, is the hard part, because my inclination is to say, thanks God, I got it from here, and then take the wheel and drive the car off the cliff again. And the challenge is, for somebody like me, it's how do you stay in that posture of surrender? What I find is when I do the little things right, that God takes care of the big things. Addiction is about ultimately abusing power. And we're all given certain powers. You have the power to make people laugh. People have education, they have connections, they have money, whatever the power is. The challenge, even as the power amplifies, is how do we make sure it's not being deployed to serve selfish ends, but it's, being deployed for some higher purpose. If you like this video,
there you have it. And what made me think of that, Rachel Zegler says, I demand to be paid for every hour that I'm standing in this dress, and screw this old 1935 dated movie, screw the prince and the love story. She's not going to be rescued, but please treat me kindly if you don't like what I just said. And I just think about, it's like, look, it's like what he said there. He's like, that you have power. You have a choice for how you're going to use that power. And how do you stay in a state of surrender when, you actually have success? And I wouldn't expect someone her age to be very wise in that regard, but she would be wise to start listening to messages like that, frankly. I think that would be, and I feel like anyone who finds himself, it's like, it doesn't matter what age you are, you're always going to be, the ego is always tempted to take credit. And I struggle with that on this channel. It's like 6 months ago, I had 0 subscribers. And it's like staying in that state of surrender and gratitude is so important. And it's true also in my writing. And certainly I am grateful for all of you, and I'm grateful for this channel, and I'm grateful for the work I've been able to do. And I'm grateful for any joy that it brings anyone. And that's how I think I would want to choose to use anything I get. I hope that I stay in that state of surrender. I love what he said there about, like, there's always this temptation to be like, thanks God, I got it from here, and I'm just going to drive it right off the cliff again. And look, this is what Rachel Zegler's at the mercy of. This is what Soto is at the mercy of. Who is the, I got to get the answer to this. Director of Dial of Destiny. Who was it? It's right on the James Mangold. James Mangold, right? This is what they're the victim of. At least the less psychopathic among them. I'll just grant that they're not total psychopaths, and that they are good people at their core. They're just, misguided, gone astray. They have forgotten. They have forgotten what really got them there. And it was their audience. It was the love of those characters. And so anyway, I just thought I would share that as a kind of a final thought. We are a non-partisan show. And I do believe, oh, wait. Oh, I totally forgot about this. I think I could get away with this because of the music. Okay, one last thing before I let you go. My dear sailors and starnuts, I just found this apropos of nothing on the internet. And I just thought it was cool. So as you may or may not know, I am a giant fan. Hang on, I'm queuing it up here. I am a giant fan of Mass Effect. It is my favorite video game series. And I came across this Avengers style trailer for it. And I have got to share this with you. Can I do? Yeah. All right, here we go. Let me see if this will. There we go. So this is for Mass Effect 3.
The reports coming in are unlike anything we've seen. Whole colonies have gone dark.
Whatever this is, it's incomprehensibly powerful.
You brought me here to confirm what you already know. The Reapers are here.
It's a fight we can't win. Not without help. We need every species and all their ships to even have a chance at defeating the Reapers.
Hell of a showdown there on Sirkesh. Just like the old days, Shepard. Right down to me pulling your ass out of the fire.
I was the one with bullets flying at me.
And I gave you the moral support to dodge them.
Shepard, you're out of your depth. There are choices coming that you're not equipped to make. I believe destroying the Reapers would be the worst mistake we could ever make. And nothing you can say will ever convince me otherwise.
I don't think we've got a big enough gun to handle that. Then I hope this idea you were talking about is a good one.
So hat tip SSV Noble. That was brilliant. that was awesome. I just love stuff like that. Hat tip SSV Noble. Brilliant Avengers style Mass Effect 3 trailer from a game that is now 11 years old. Yeesh. That's a decade-old video game. Anyway. Yes, he did. Fu Man Blue says, dude had his Dragon Age gear. Haha. Yes. That was the Blood Dragon armor, which is a nod to Dragon Age. And of course, in Dragon Age, you can also get like can you get something in Dragon Age? It's like a nod to Mass Effect. I feel like you can. I just don't remember what it is now. They have cool little Easter eggs that like nod to their other games in the BioWare verse. They're pretty fun. So anyway, well, my dear sailors and starnuts, we've had a good stream. Yeah, it's like a helmet or something from Bliss. Also, before I forget, okay, so something I wanted. So obviously, I've been talking about the locals for a while, and I haven't done much with it, and I regret that. Your captain deeply, deeply regrets that. So I had a thought: how can we make locals fun? Because locals. I really want to get that going because it's a way to have a community that can't be censored, and that's really what I like about it. So anyhow. What if we do a role-playing game? Because your humble captain is also a talented GM. That is Game Master, aka Dungeon Master, in Dungeons and Dragons terms. And so I was thinking what we could do is what was this called? A play-by-post? Yeah, it's a play-by-post style RPG. So there's a lot of Discord servers that do this, basically. They do where you basically, the GM says, okay, here's the post of like what's happening. You arrive in a town and you talk to the mayor and et cetera, et cetera. And then the player enters in their action as a post, a reply. And, battles are calculated by the GM pretty much automatically. So like, in other words, you're not going to have like turn-based combat because that would take too long. But you basically say, okay, I'm going to attack the ogre and this is my strategy, et cetera, et cetera. And then the GM is going to resolve the outcome of the fight. Stuff like that. And basically my idea is anyone that wants to participate can jump in with a character. So I'm working on an idea for that. My question is, any suggestions on what universe you'd like this to be in? Because what I'm considering is, I'm thinking Fallout is one idea I have, because I'm already thinking about doing a Fallout RPG anyhow. So a Fallout setting, or what was the other setting I had? Maybe something fantasy, maybe Warhammer was one idea. But Warhammer's kind of obscure. So like you kind of have to be, like, as I said, it's nerdy even among nerds. What else? So I would say probably a Stranger Things, actually. I was thinking about doing a Stranger Things mystery story. I thought would be kind of fun. I've done this before. It works very well with the Fate system. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's kind of a lower scale RPG, but it's no less fun for that. So you have, your skills are a little more civilian, shall we say. So we could do that, or why am I drawing a blank on this? I'm trying to think of like what other RPG universes. I mean, I guess I could do. I'm not super into Dungeons and Dragons. I will play it. I enjoy playing it. I've just never been like, itching to run a game with that. So anyway, let me know any ideas you have. But I think probably what I'm going to be working on is a Fallout setting and doing it as a play-by-post on locals. So when I'm ready to launch that, you will know. Lord of the Rings. Oh, yes. Fu Man Blue. Great suggestion. Lord of the Rings. Okay, let me know if you're interested in a Lord of the Rings setting. Now, I will say this. I do not have Gary's absolute that would be nerdrotic. I do not have Gary's inexhaustible knowledge of lore in Lord of the Rings. I have not read the Silmarillion. Can I pronounce that? Silmarillion? So, yeah, if I have to rely on the wiki, I'll do my best. But if I have to occasionally, dude, Lord of the Rings, like, you got to know your lore if you're gonna deal with Lord of the Rings fans. I'm just saying. So, anyway, but yes, it's so Fu Man Blue. It's locals.com. So I am on swordsandstarships.locals.com, and it's free to follow, and it'll be free to play. No membership required. It's also a place where you can get bypass YouTube memberships. So, and I have some tasks. I have some tasks that have been given to me by the community. I need to get memberships up and running, but also I need to. What was my action item for earlier? I'll have to watch the recording. Star Fury had a action item for me. Also, I will have Rumble. Will be fixed, and I will upload this stream to Rumble as well. So my apologies to the Rumble followers, and we've had a good time tonight, haven't we? Man, we just roasted the shit out of that Blue Beetle, didn't we? That movie. One bar, see, it's so funny. I'm watching that movie, and the bars were falling as I was watching it, because I started at about Act 1 of the film. I'm like, oh, I'd say this is sitting at about 6 bars, just a shade over mediocre. Then he gets the Blue Beetle thing and all the, my God, what's happening to you? Ay, loco mia. Oh, no. Andale, andale. It's like, dude, this movie, it's like a stereotype of Mexicans. The whole movie. They're like, you could practically hear the characters saying, I'm so Mexican. I'm just so Mexican. They're like, look, My point is the movie won't let you not make a big deal out of it the whole time. But so the movie leans into that very heavily and acts as though like it's some big deal that like you should find it relatable to have a Mexican family be the center of the story. It's not a big deal, Hollywood. It turns out there's lots of Mexicans in the world. There's lots of Mexicans in American communities. It turns out they're already our neighbors and citizens. It's no big deal. It's like the movie makes a big deal out of something that's no big deal. It's like, whatever. So anyhow, I'm watching it, and the more crazy the film gets, it's like the bars just keep dropping. And by the end of that movie, I'm like, I'm tempted to give this a 0. I think the only reason I can't give this movie a 0 is because Ant-Man and Quantumania gets a 0. And I just cannot justify that this movie is a little better than Ant-Man Quantumania because, you know, the father-son dynamic was really good. The family sometimes had a good emotional core, minus the sister. Good God. So, yes. All right. Off to Forbidden Frontier over under erotic. Good for you, Fu Man Blue. All right. Well, thank you, my dear sailors and Starnuts, for joining me. This has been the Captain's Cast on Swords and Starships on YouTube, Twitter /X, and Rumble. And I am your host, Captain Garrett. Please do like and subscribe. Check me out on Locals, swordsandstarships.locals.com. And I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. I certainly enjoyed hanging out with you. And what I would say as we depart, my dear sailors and Starnuts, I would say to you, I will see you out there.